Skull and Globbers, episode 24. Let's get it.
Days after days, pseudoscience just a big charade, making theories they just can't explain, on philosophically biased claims. Days after days, we break away just like a renegade, so pay attention, gonna get a grade. The school and globers tell they all awake. School and globers with diplomas and a chip on the shoulder. Debate is over, mind is sober, solar system disclosure. Can't go back once you heard the facts. We make a pact, never take the backs. School and ballers and the followers that give them the dollars. They try to holler in the chat that you're a fraud, not a scholar. They hating y'all, that's why they attack. The earth is flat no matter how much they laugh. Days after days, pseudoscience just a big charade, making theories they just can't explain, on philosophically biased claims. Days after days, we break away just like a renegade, so pay attention, gonna get a grade. We school and globers tell they all away.
Oh. Boom. All right. Little rusty. What up, familia? I'm going to pop this off. I think Discord can hear me now. All right. So how's it going? Sorry that we are a little rusty, but you know, it happens. So welcome to Skull and Globbers, episode 24. We had to pop in a topic based on really globber behavior, somewhat surprising globber behavior. But at the same time, it's not particularly surprising. You know how it goes. So we're going to recap the questions from the previous shows. We're going to see if we got any answers, and then we're going to pop off the new question. And then we're going to open it up to people to jump in. So if you want to be a part of the show, there's a Discord link in the description. There's also a Rumble link to Earth Awakening's Rumble that constantly streams 24/7. It streams these kind of conversations. If you have questions about the subject, if you're new to this subject, if you have someone that you want to introduce this subject to that, you know, is kind of difficult to talk to, bring them in there. Any question you have, any topic you have has almost assuredly been covered ad nauseum there. It's a great resource, and shout out to them for letting us host a show here. And yeah, I think we're building something cool. And then 2024 is going to be a pretty epic year. So I say kind of this is the year to remove toxicity, negativity, people in your life that are toxic or stuck in their ways. Just kind of cut them out, be nice to them, elevate, and then let's kind of step up like the truther movement, quote unquote, to the next level. So we'll keep it kind of short with that. I'll give you guys updates on what's going on later. We're going to jump right into it. So shout out to all the people on Rumble, Rockfin, and YouTube. Thanks for kicking it. Like I said, if you want to partake in the after presentation discussion, there is a link in the description to the Earth Awakening's Discord. And we're going to pop right over to the PowerPoint. And all right, cool. Let's do it. So let's get right into the presentation. Discord can see it as well. All right, so Skull and Globbers, episode 24. So we're going to recap kind of the questions from before. Can you provide any exclusive evidence that the Earth orbits around the sun is the first question. Second question, can you provide any exclusive evidence that the sun is 93 million miles away? Third question, can high-frequency radio waves and microwaves propagate through the curvature of the Earth? Fourth question from the last show is, can you have equipotential lines in a vertical electric field without two Gaussian surfaces? And the question that we are going to tackle today And hopefully it doesn't go too long. I have a lot of stuff I have to do early in the morning, but this question seems to become very cyclical and repetitive and redundant. But the question is, can Newtonian gravity and the claim of Earth's orbit both be true simultaneously? That's a very specific question for a very specific reason, and we're going to cover it. It's not as much a specific refutation of the Earth being a globe, but it is a very important topic and one that is surprisingly not understood by many globe proponents. So here's a recap as it pertains to the first question. There exists no exclusive evidence that the Earth orbits around the sun. Yes, it's a popular belief. People are shown cartoons. People, 2-year-olds, 1-year-olds, 6-month-old, newborns are shown the solar system hanging above them, spinning around. Cartoons when they're 5 or 6, everyone just kind of believes that there's a solar system, but there's no actual exclusive evidence that that's true at all. Exclusive in this context, of course, meaning that there is evidence that can only be explained by the Earth orbiting around the sun. All attempts to measure/detect the alleged orbit of the Earth around the sun has failed due to no exclusivity of evidence. The kinematic equivalence between geocentrism and heliocentrism, a geocentric model absent of dark matter and dark energy problems, is significantly more viable. And so we've covered this quite a bit on this channel. If you're not aware, you can go to Relatively Speaking, previous episodes, or even previous Going Globbers episodes. The truth is that based on empirical evidence such as Michelson-Morley and many other things since then, Airy's failure, etc., they've had to update the current globe Earth model, the heliocentric belief system, to claim that actually there's a kinematic equivalence with the Earth being in the center. And in fact, even they've snuck in a dynamic equivalence, meaning that everything can be explained, all observations, all movements, all phenomena, all astronomical observations in totality can be explained from the Earth in a stationary central position. Okay, there is also no exclusive evidence supporting the claimed distance to the sun of 93 million miles. The claimed radar bounce was never successfully done, as the background and solar noise of the data drowns out any attempt to truly identify the alleged radar echo. The popular script that people repeat is that they bounced radar off the sun to verify it was 93 million miles away. Just to claim that they all hear and they all repeat and they all say it with like illusory arrogance and confidence, never having actually researched. Of course, takes just a few minutes. That's what this Discord's so good for. We just find topics, claims, and then we go and research them. And we find out very quickly, not only do they not support the globe claim, in fact, they almost always backfire and do the exact opposite. But in this supposed test, right, in addition, these tests from the late 50s to the early 60s use an archaic Kerr model of the sun. So they admittedly used a model that's not even the current model of the sun anymore to even make the assumptive interpretation of the supposed radar bounce. In addition, they admit they can't even distinguish the radar between the solar noise that's there. And so basically, very simply, there's already things that can be misinterpreted or misidentified as radar bouncing coming from the sun 24/7, and it was hard for them to distinguish if there was actually any such thing as a radar bounce. That's what actually happened. Hasn't been done since then because it's stupid and archaic, and they had to create an entire new computer interpretive model to try to explain it away. It still didn't work, etc. Additionally, required assumptive mathematical models, which we just innovative coding methods, so brand new methods to try to interpret the data to get what they want. It still didn't work and still did not result in any reliable results whatsoever. Additionally, the sun in the heliocentric model is supposedly a black body which absorbs all wavelengths of light, of course including radar. This is where they say, oh, there's no such thing as a black body. Okay, it's just a hypothetical ideal concept. Okay, then stop talking about it so much. Stop claiming that the sun is a black body. So nothing's technically perfectly a black body, but the sun's as close as you can get. But I promise the sun's not a perfect black body. There's no such thing. So just enough happened to bounce back. Okay, what percentage of the radar, which is light, radar, right? Radio waves, electromagnetic waves. What percentage of them are absorbed by this really close to a black body because no true black body exists? And then what percentage are you expected to get back? And then how do you counter that into the solar noise? And then it just absolutely destroys such a ridiculous asinine claim. But yes, people still say it in 2024. The trigonometric method using the transit of Venus is entirely unreliable and unfeasible in reality due to the required length of the baseline, atmospheric and temperature disturbances, required precision of observational synchronization, and resolvability requirements. It also requires presupposed metrics of the globe model in the first place, such as the diameter. I did go fast, but look at the past streams when we covered that more in depth. Okay. Also, a big problem for the claim that the sun is 93 million miles away is things such as high altitude balloons showing hot spots. Many will deny this is a hot spot. It's just a coincidental circular gap in the clouds right under the sun where you're seeing a reflection off of the water from 120,000 feet up. So that's a pretty cool story. I guess that's basically an implicit, inadvertent admission that if that is in fact a local hot spot directly under the sun, that it does in fact refute the claim that the sun is 93 million miles away. Of course, the sun has a 0.5 degree angular size, and we know that that means the sun rays are going to have to be divergent from that position. But again, the globe gets to claim anomalous miracle physics. So, okay, high frequency radio waves. The ionosphere is said to have a frequency range of up to 40 megahertz, and the ionized region of the atmosphere allegedly reflects radio waves back down to the Earth to explain why line of sight transmission far exceeds the geometric limitation of the globe Earth model. World record transmissions ranging from 100 megahertz to upward of 100 gigahertz have been sent line of sight far beyond this assumed physical geometric limitation. These frequencies are far too high to, quote, reflect off the ionosphere, thus falsifying the spherical Earth assumption. This is another one of the moments where the globe earthers just constantly get to have their cake and eat it too in their diluted worldview. And I am not being condescending as much as blunt, but they will say that they send 110 megahertz frequencies radar to bounce off the moon reliably and consistently, then will turn around and tell us that 900 megahertz up to all the way to 100 gigahertz actually bounces off the ionosphere whenever it goes too far for the globe Earth assumption, which is just ridiculous. And of course, if a frequency is higher than the ionization, the ionized gas, i.e. plasma's frequency, then it will penetrate directly through it. We have far exceeded that. We have in-depth shows in the past about that as well. There are equipotential lines of the Earth's vertical electric field that are measurable. Very terrible grammar there. I was typing fast. This results in a downward electric current. We may cover that a little bit more in depth today, but I call them equipotential lines so people understand them if you see the graphic here. But really, they will be referred to also as equipotential surfaces. Right? And so you have to have two Gaussian surfaces in order to have these equipotential surfaces. And so this is the real death blow to the globe. No one has been able to answer because there is no answer. How can you have this uniform, keyword there, uniform vertical electric field with horizontal parallel equipotential surfaces without the antecedent of two perpendicular Gaussian surfaces? Now, of course, if it's perpendicular to the vertical field, it is horizontal. If it is parallel at the top and the bottom, then they're both horizontal, right? And if all the equipotential surfaces or lines in between are parallel, those are equally horizontal. The problem is if you were to place a conductive sphere inside of an electric field that was uniform, it would immediately change because the charges would redistribute inside the sphere, and then they would radially distribute, and the most that you can have concentric circles coming off that sphere. So you cannot have a uniform field. It's quite literally and physically impossible. And this is just subjective. Therefore, what we measure on the Earth, which is an actual uniform vertical electric field, is completely impossible on a sphere. It's also completely impossible without some type of physical Gaussian surface. They'll say Gaussian surfaces are just mathematical and hypothetical, and this is true that in Gauss's law, we use Gaussian surfaces as a mathematical construct, but when you are to actually demonstrate or replicate a vertical electric field that is uniform in reality, you of course need to use two real physical surfaces as your Gaussian surfaces. They are not limited to merely concepts, and simple research of basic electrical field theory would show you this. So there's a pretty quick breakthrough. I'm going fast through these. Like I said, I don't want the show to be super long. We're going to cover another subject that I know kind of ends up taking a while. So that's a death blow to the globe Earth. That's a death blow to their claim of gravity as it results in a downward electric current. And it's 10 microamps per meter square, but there are a lot of square meters on the Earth, and you have, according to their size claim of the Earth, which we know is wrong, so it's actually a greater number than this, there's 400,000 volts at any given time coming down to the Earth. There's an immense amount of electrical power coming down to the Earth at all times. And my question would be, of course, hey, if there's that much electrical force coming down from the sky to the Earth, would that create a downward bias? Of course it would. So, and to run through that real quick, near the surface of the Earth, the magnitude of the field is on average around 100 volts per meter. And And here we talked about the Gaussian surface. If you see here, you see it going down, and that those Gaussian lines or surfaces are, of course, parallel to the horizontal Earth. And you see that to replicate it, and in the demonstration in Feynman's lectures, which I've pulled up if someone actually has the audacity to try to challenge us, I doubt it, then you have to actually have two metal plates. That's how it works. So I've replicated it and flipped the polarity of the field to show that you can actually change the direction something falls based on this very phenomena, which goes to show you that it's a direct causal agent of what we observe when things go up and or down and have a downward bias. So here's another representation. You see the 400,000 volts going up, but we actually have this all coming down onto the Earth, 700 megawatts at any given time, coming down to the Earth from the sky. The globe model has no Gaussian surface to act as the antecedent to the equipotential lines of the measurable vertical electric field. To make matters worse, the Gaussian surface must be perpendicular to the field. To make things even worse, you cannot have, even if you have concentric circles outside of the sphere to act as your equipotential surfaces, you cannot have a uniform vertical electric field due to radial distribution of charge. Okay, so it's going to radiate out from the sphere. It's going to distribute the charge based on that, and it cannot be uniform, objectively and factually. So, okay, let's get to the question of the day. Can Newtonian gravity and the claim of Earth's orbit both be true simultaneously? The reason this has come up, and it's funny because we're having to go back to like 5th grade and to the 1600s, but almost every globe proponent clings on to Newtonian gravity as if it is their lifeline. They are typically not very familiar with relativity. They're typically misinformed on exactly the differences between the two. And it's easier for them to say mass attracts mass to give the very simple equation for gravity and to just claim that it works good enough. But it does not work good enough, and we're going to cover that. So, Newton's first law of motion, also known as the law of inertia, states that an object will remain at rest or keep moving in a straight line at a constant speed unless acted upon by a force. Okay, this is a very fundamental aspect of Newtonian mechanics. It's his first law of motion, right? So Newton says that, for example, if I throw a baseball, putting a pause on the reification or the idea of gravity for a second, if I throw this baseball straight, right? When the wind blows on the baseball, an external outside force acts on that baseball, it'll move off the straight path. But if that wind doesn't come in, it'll keep going straight. Now, also, it will fall down eventually, and that's because of what people call gravity, right? So an outside force must act upon the baseball or it would continue straight. That's what Newtonian mechanics says. And if you're going to invoke Newtonian gravity, drum roll please, that is dynamics, which requires mechanics, which means you don't get to pick and choose. And so Newtonian gravity, of course, requires Newtonian mechanics to be accurate. So in case anyone has forgotten, this is the claim, and I know that Globbers love cartoons, so I got you, don't even worry about it. The claim is that that little blue dot there, which looks better than certain pictures I've seen, is going around the sun along with all the other planets. Now, believe it or not, that is actually not a straight line. So if you guys look very carefully here at this beautiful and highly detailed picture in 4K from NASA, you will see that these circles are not straight lines. They're actually circles. And so the orbit of the Earth is not a straight line. It is a circle. Is it a perfect circle? No, not the point. So let's compare, or let's apply Newton here. This object's going to continue a straight line unless an external force acts upon it. Okay, so unless it's acted on by a force, it's going to keep going straight. Well, since it's not going straight, then there must be some force acting on the Earth to make it go around, not straight, but around the sun, right? Sorry if I'm too close to the mic. Hopefully I'm not. So, okay, if it's going around, what's the force? Well, Newton would say gravity. Gravity is the force acting on the Earth, and it's pulling it around the sun, right? And in fact, he would say that gravity is an innate property of matter, that gravity is instantaneous, requiring instantaneous action at a distance, because there's no time variable. He said he didn't even understand it must be a direct act of God himself. Okay, and he also thought that the sun was in the center of the entire universe. So for us to go back to that idea seems very archaic, right? Whenever the whole talking point against flat earth is that flat earth is a very archaic, disproven idea. We've disproven it thousands of years ago. Science has progressed from there and blah, blah, blah. But then to defend this supposed progression, we must then regress to the 1600s when someone thought that gravity was God acting and that the sun was the center of the universe, and didn't know about anything else we've discovered in astronomy. That's weird. Okay. So let's cover two basic principles of logic. These are the two first principles of logic, meaning they're the most fundamental. Number one is the law of non-contradiction. Contradictory claims cannot be true at the same time in the same sense. Now, I agree, it's pretty crazy that we actually have to cover this. And the law of the excluded middle, which got cut off for some reason, but it is something either is or is not. It cannot be both, right? Okay, so something either is or is not. That's the law of the excluded middle. And the law of non-contradiction is contradictory claims, meaning antithetical, opposite, cannot be true at the same time in the same sense, right? So these are very basic principles of logic. And the fact that the conversations we've had over the last week with people coming in defending the globe Earth model have resorted to us having to add this to the presentation should be very telling. Okay, so no one would disagree with this, surely. The door's open or it's closed. It's not both, right? And believe it or not, you're a man or you're a woman. Okay, so let's compare the basic principles here that are direct contradictions between Newton and Einstein. Very beautiful picture of him here. He looks like a demon, so it's very accurate. Newton said an object will continue in a straight path unless an external force acts upon it. We just covered that. Well, what did Einstein say? Einstein said an object can go in a curved path without a force acting upon it. Okay, so one says the object can't go in a curved path unless another force acts on it to remove it from the straight path and make it curve. Like this. These are curved circles, or orbits. But Einstein said that's not true. Einstein said that, for example, with the Earth, it's going to look like it's going in a circle or an orbit around the sun, but actually, that's only going to look like that from the sun or from an outside reference frame. But from the Earth, we're still going straight. And that an object can curve without an outside force acting upon it because it is free falling in what's called a geodesic path through the curvature of space-time. So the Earth is actually going straight, free falling, but it will look like it's curving from another reference frame. From another reference frame, it is curving, right? So the object can curve, but there's no force acting on it because it's in free fall, so there's no force. And it's actually going straight, has a linear motion, and it's free falling through the curvature of space-time, which means when you step outside, you're going to see it curving. These are fundamentally different claims, right? One says an object will continue a straight path unless an external force acts upon it. It cannot go in a curved path without that outside force. Einstein says an object can go in a curved path without an outside force acting upon it. In fact, that's the very thing that happens with the orbits, including the Earth's orbit. These cannot both be true because it would violate the law of non-contradiction. So we must pick either or. If someone then responds with, well, it works good enough, it's simpler, whatever, you can get the same results, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is physics. Science explains, math describes. So if you then bring up, oh, the math can be the same, that's a non sequitur. It's not even relevant. It doesn't sequentially follow. We're talking about physics, science, explanations. If you're going to claim that the Earth is a globe that flies around the sun, you're going to claim that gravity is the cause of that. You're claiming a causal mechanism. That's where you get mechanics. That's a dynamic claim. That is an explanatory claim, not descriptive. So yes, you can describe many things with many different versions of math and all get the same effect or the same outcome, but they can have different explanations. Science explains, math describes. If this is true, you need a physically viable explanation. That is an explanation of physics is not limited to math, right? That was redundant, but hopefully we really get that because I can assure you if people do actually step in and try to defend this, what you will hear is they will always revert back to the math. Well, no, the math is the same. Like, that's not relevant. Okay. So basically, if I can create a mathematical equation that say that little fairies are all inhaling at the same time while they hold the hands of their best friends, the little gnomes that are also inhaling, that causes things to go in towards the center of the globe. And the sun is inhaling super hard. The sun's actually alive and a god. And so it keeps everything moving around it. And I show you that the equations work out the same. That must be just as equally valid as Einstein and Newton, because I can get the same effect. I can get the same math, right? It's a ridiculous idea. Okay, so these are fundamentally different. One must be true, and only one can be true. Of course, neither of them are. So the second one here is Newton says that there must be an ether. Well, Einstein specifically did away with the ether. Now, he kind of went back on that, said, I messed up when I asserted the non-existence of an ether. I should have said more accurately, I should have asserted the non-existence of an ether drift, right? And because now I see that when we say ether, we say nothing more than space must be endowed with physical properties, and in fact, space without ether is unthinkable, and that its journey or its story has progressed many times throughout history, and by no means is it finished with relativity, but rather continued. But it is not an ether that's an actual mechanical medium that can have motion applied to it. And he was very specific about that, which is what the ether actually is. So him just saying, oh, well, we'll hijack the ether and the physical properties because we need it, but we'll basically at the same time say that there's nothing physical there is a him problem. But Newton said that there was no time variable in gravity and that it must require instantaneous action at a distance for his equations to work. That's why I said it must be an act of God. And he said that the idea that innate brute matter would act instantly on other matter through the vastness of a vacuum without some type of medium between the two that is touching both of them, so mutual contact, is to him so great an absurdity that no man with competent faculty of thinking in philosophical matters could ever fall into it. And whether this medium is material or immaterial, I've left to the consideration of the readers. That's why he then goes on in the future to write about the ether, because his equations don't have a time variable, thus require gravity to be instant, thus require mutual contact between the two masses, thus requires an ether specifically. This is why leading up to the early 1900s, or really the late 1800s, everybody thought there was an ether, and everyone adhered to Newtonian mechanics across the board, right? All physicists adhere to both of those things. Okay, so that's another direct contradiction. Newton says that there must exist an ether. His framework requires an ether. Einstein specifically says there cannot be an ether. There is no ether, and asserts its non-existence. Okay, the third one, space. Newton claimed that space is absolute and fixed. Einstein said space is not absolute and fixed. Now, can these both be true? Can they be simultaneously true? Can a claim that space is fixed and a claim that space is not fixed both be the same thing and be true at the same time? Of course not. They are opposite. Yep. Yeah. That's correct. Yes. One's 3D, one's 4D. It's not even the same claim of space. Indeed, Jeremy. And I think we get it, right? Like if one says space is fixed and one says space is not fixed, they are not going to both coexist as simultaneously true. I mean, it's insane that I have to go to this level, but we do. Trust me. And if any globber comes in here, you will see that we do. So, and this is another thing is, of course, Einstein said nothing's absolute. There is no such thing as an absolute frame, right? Everything is relative. In fact, the only thing that's absolute is light. And this is because you have to have something to be absolute to measure against. If you have nothing that's absolute, you have no theory whatsoever. You can't. Now, of course, in reality, what do we use as the absolute? The stationary lab frame, which is a fancy way of saying a stationary Earth. That's all that is. An actual lab physical setting Earth. We treat it as absolute. We measure against that in reality. Now, of course, Einstein says, yeah. Of course, that's how it's always going to be, but I promise that's not actually what's happening. Right? So anyway, these are fundamental contradictions. They are antithetical to one another. They cannot coexist. And of course, the big one here is that Newton said gravity is a force, and Einstein said gravity is not a force. He said it's the effect of the bending and warping of space-time, and it specifically is not a force. Now, you'll see modern physicists run around and say, it's not a force, but you can activate it like a force. It's kind of like a pseudo-force, but not really a pseudo-force per se, because we have to call things like Coriolis pseudo and a different application, but it's an emergent force. It's not a force, but it is a force, but, well, it's not, but you can think of it as one, and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, one says it's a force, one says it's not a force, and this is very important, because we did get into Michelson-Morley. And I don't even think I have a slide for this. So we get into Michelson-Morley, and I'm going to cover this pretty quickly. Michelson-Morley, if you don't know, you should definitely familiarize yourself with it. But we shot perpendicular light rays, and we assumed the ether, we assumed the speed of light, and we assumed... we didn't really assume the speed of light because they were trying to determine the velocity of light, right? But we assumed that the Earth was orbiting the sun. And so the perpendicular light rays, which we shot one light beam to make sure that they were perfectly in phase, we split it, and then they hit mirrors. They reflect in different directions. They then reflect back to the center. They recombine and then go towards the receiver together, right? If the Earth is stationary, right, and there was nothing moving that could be detected, they'd get there at the same time. If the Earth was moving, then based on which direction the light beam was going relative to the Earth's orbit, then one of the light beams would take longer to get to the receiver because it would have to travel a longer path. Just like the Sagnac effect, the very exact thing that is the explanation for the Sagnac effect. And that is because there's a rotation. Now, like we covered, right? Now, the globe claims that the current paradigm claims that's because there's a rotation. As we covered, this is a rotation. No matter how much someone says, oh, well, no, it's not. What does rotation mean? Circular motion around a central axis. Okay, this is absolutely, by definition, a rotation. So this is a circular path. So therefore, we should detect it. If there's a force acting on the Earth causing it to actually move in a circular path, in a curved path, if Newtonian mechanics was true, what did Newton say? That there's a force acting on it. So if this is happening, according to Newton, there's a force acting on it to move it in an actual circular path, which means that you would then actually detect the motion of the Earth. We did not detect the motion of the Earth. That was assumed. That's why it's called the greatest felt experiment ever, and then all of physics was changed because Einstein came in and replaced the framework of Newtonian mechanics with Einsteinian mechanics. Because, again, if there was a force acting on the Earth causing it to actually move in a circle, in a circular path, then we would have detected that with interferometry. Einstein came in and said, the reason that you didn't detect it with interferometry is because it's not moving in a circular path. That's right. Einstein's such a genius, he said that this is not moving in a circular path. What a genius. I've never thought of that. People actually pretend that it's profound, and this is why I have the saying, ineptitude conflates profundity with, ineptitude conflates paradox with profundity. See, this is paradoxical. People don't understand it. They think it's profound. So anyway, just to wrap it up here, we would detect it, but we didn't. So Einstein said, oh, well, the reason you don't detect it is because this actually isn't going in a circular path. It's going in a straight line. And it's free falling through the geodesic path of the curved space-time, creating the illusion that it's curving. Well, really, it is actually curving, but just from the other reference frame. So no force is acting upon it. And from the Earth, it's not going in a curved path. It's actually going straight. So that's why we didn't detect the motion of the Earth around the sun. It's because the Earth was going straight. So when people say that relativity had nothing to do with Michelson-Morley, I have his paper pulled up right here. I hope someone comes on here and says that, because that will obviously get buried live for everyone to see. He specifically said that was the first path that led him to relativity, right? He goes over it in his paper specifically. And this was required to save the heliocentric model, or the claim of an orbit. It is literally required in terms of physics to explain it. That's why it was proposed. So people claiming it has nothing to do with it are just grossly misinformed. So in summary, Based on Michelson-Morley not detecting the assumed orbit of the Earth, Newtonian mechanics cannot be true because a force would be acting on the Earth, causing it to go in a circular motion, which would have then been detected. And it should have been decisive because it was over 10 times more sensitive than it needed to be to detect that displacement or that alleged orbit. Einstein came in and said, you'll never be able to detect it. You can't detect it because we're actually going in a straight path and we're going in a curved path at the same time. And there's no force acting on it because blah, blah, blah. We've repeated it many times, okay? And there was a fringe shift, and he said it's just instrumental error, and you guys have probably heard us cover that. We might get into that tonight. So, in summary, there are many more than this, by the way. Like Jeremy just brought up one. They're fundamentally different spaces, right? But there are 4 primary contradictions, antithetical postulations from Newtonian Einstein mechanics. They cannot coexist, right? It's that an object will continue in a straight path without a force, or unless there's an external force acting on it. Einstein says that's not true. It can be in a curved path without a force, right? There must be an ether in Newtonian mechanics. There is no ether in Einsteinian mechanics, and there cannot be an ether. Newtonian space is absolute and fixed. Einsteinian space is not absolute and fixed. Nothing's absolute. Everything's relative. Only light is absolute. And then Newtonian gravity is a force. Einsteinian gravity is not a force. So the answer to the question, which is, can Newtonian gravity and the claim of Earth's orbit both be true simultaneously, is a resounding no. Absolutely not. Anyone claiming that it can is patently wrong and misinformed. Okay? So if you believe the Earth is in fact spinning around, revolving around the sun, that's cool, bro. Believe what you want to believe, but actually believe what you believe. Okay? And so that is Skull and Glober's episode 24. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come full screen really fast. Solo cam. I'm going to break this down. Oh, I don't know what happened. Actually, I'm not. All right, I'll fix the camera. We'll go ahead and bring on Discord, and then we'll go from there. So let me pop them on. Boom. Okay, there's Discord. So you guys know how it goes. If you want to speak, Globbers go first. If you believe that the Earth is a ball that flies around the sun or whatever, you get priority. Just raise your hand. We'll bring you up. And of course, the format is very simple. We need you to address the questions. We now have 5 questions up here. Ideally, addressing the one of today would always be good, and that's, can Newtonian gravity and the claim of the Earth's orbit be true simultaneously? And then we're just going to open it up to other true earthers until a globe Earth believer kind of mans up and comes up. We found out that is not typically the case. So, all right, cool. Anybody that's already on stage got anything they want to say real quick while I try to fix my camera? No. Oh, let's play it. I'll play. What's up, Sifo? We can hear you. That was a joke. Yeah, you sound good. You sound fine. So this is a clip from when Alan came in late and I ran through it super quick. Is that what you're saying? Oh, they probably couldn't even heard you guys.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Cool. I'm gonna I didn't even know this on my channel. It's funny. So let me make sure that it's showing. Boom. All right. So shout out to the 465 on YouTube. We're about to play this video real quick, and then we'll come back over to Discord. Hopefully there's no echo in Discord after I play this. We'll see.
We can't see it on Discord. I don't know if you're trying to do that.
Oh, okay. I didn't think about it. Let me share with you guys real quick. Okay. Good enough. This will be good. You guys can see now, right?
Yep.
All right, cool. And then I think you guys are good on YouTube as well, so let's play it. You can't claim that Newton is correct and that the Earth is orbiting the sun at the same time, right? Because Michelson-Morley literally debunked Newton if the Earth is orbiting. You know, obviously, because You claim that an object will continue in a straight path unless an external or outside force acts upon it, which would, of course, cause an interference pattern because you would detect that outside force on the Earth itself. That's where Einstein comes in and says, oh, it's not actually curving with an external force. It's actually still traveling straight with linear velocity only. It's just free falling through a geodesic path of curved space-time. Therefore, from the reference frame of the Earth, it's going straight in a straight line. So you wouldn't detect the linear velocity with interferometry, which is why you can't detect the Earth's orbit. And if Newton was correct, you would have an external force acting on the Earth from the Earth's reference point, actually curving it literally. Therefore, you would detect it. Therefore, they had to come in and save the day with Einstein. So you literally and quite objectively cannot claim Newtonian gravity and the Earth is orbiting the sun at the same time. Boom, I should have just done that.
There you go. There's the 1 minute version of the presentation.
That's awesome.
That was great. That was excellent.
That was very well edited, brother. Jeremy,
Also, let me just
You
point
laid it
out.
out. You perfectly squeezed it within the time frame for a TikTok and a YouTube short.
Beautiful.
Jeremy, what's
Also,
up?
let me just point out they're working the second law of Newton's second law of motion. F equals ma, the force part. This force thing's a body bag. They're actually working on a thing called modified Newtonian dynamics because they know it can't. Newton's second law can't work with galaxy rotation.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. The galaxy rotational speeds are way too fast. The edges of the galaxies are moving too fast. They should have slowed down. Yeah.
But the force and not a force thing, that's where the thing, Newton said it was a force. Einstein himself said it was not a force. Law of non-contradiction, it's over. You're gonna get a whole rigmarole from these guys.
I mean, I doubt it, right? I doubt it because when the YouTube's on, for some reason, it's like they know that what their claim is kind of ridiculous or something. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, so like that short, that's for us, right? That's for the homies, those of us that actually understand this. It's a good breakdown within a minute. And people are going to complain. Of course, there's always going to be these globbers that have their grievances. Oh, he's talking too fast, word salad, blah, blah, blah. But you just laid it out. You spent 2 hours going over it, and or an hour and 15 minutes going over it, and it's pretty clear and concise. So I'm really excited to hear what they've got to say.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to keep in the mag. It's like, all right, look, I got you in a minute. You weren't listening. I got you again. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, right? Because there's a lot of this that they've gotten away with. I mean, like if you're talking about Newton, bro, you're talking about the ether. Like for starters, right? Like if you're even bringing Newton up at all, you're invoking ether. Like what are you doing? Why did we let them get away with that for so long, right? Like Newtonian gravity has no accountants for time variable, requiring it be instant, requiring a medium, i.e. an ether. If you bring up Newtonian mechanics, you're actually invoking an ether. If you bring up Newtonian mechanics, you're actually claiming the Earth is stationary. If you bring up Newtonian mechanics, you're claiming that space is an absolute reference frame to measure against, i.e. an ether, and clearly actually has a drift in it. Because now that the Earth is stationary, then there has to be a drift in the ether, right? If you're claiming Newtonian mechanics, you're claiming gravity as a force, an innate property of matter. So stop doing it, right? I mean, just stop doing it. And what I was going to say, and I got to fix my camera and let you guys kind of talk. What I was going to say is, it's very weird that you guys believe the Earth is orbiting the sun. You believe all of that, but you have only gone as far in your mind as Newtonian mechanics, Newtonian gravity, mass attracts mass to believe it. So really what's happening is you're trying to convince us of a belief that you haven't even been able to convince yourself of yet. And that is wild. That is a wild psychological phenomenon, right? If you're fighting it, you're fighting what's actually required for your belief to be true. I mean, that's weird. So I encourage everyone to kind of step back and be like, okay, if I believe this is what's got to be true. Anyone else that wants to jump in, you guys go ahead and chat. I'm going to mute real quick and then try to fix my camera.
Got a couple people in chat. Want them to come up here. You guys have priority. Globbers, that is.
Well, I think that, like, obviously, I don't believe that Newtonian physics actually governs the universe. However, I think that Newtonian physics is a good enough approximation that we can explain a lot of stuff with it.
Dude, this is physics, bro. There either is a force or there isn't a force, right? Physically, in reality, what you need to pick one.
Right. In reality, hold on 1 second. Sorry.
In
You
reality,
can't have
holding
you can't
these
have
two.
both.
Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
No, I'm just saying, man, you can't have both. Like you're violating the law of non-contradiction if you try to say there is a force and is no force at the same time.
Yeah. They call that cognitive dissonance when you hold two opposing ideas in your mind at the same time. It's literally cognitive dissonance.
Sorry, what I was saying is that no, I don't believe that gravity is actually like a physical force. However, it does act like one, and for all intents and purposes, we can treat it as one.
Okay, so you treat it as a force,
Right. Even though
but
technically,
it's a pseudo force in relativity
yes.
definitions. So that's two opposing views.
It's not opposing. It's
One's
not opposing to say
a
that it
force and
acts
one's not a force.
I don't know
Though.
how to convert
I
right.
don't understand that.
But
that.
it's not opposing to say that something acts as a force but isn't, you know?
What we
Like,
just
if you're-
covered this, bro. I
Like
thought
if you're in a spinning room, right, there's going to be a centrifugal force. The centrifugal force doesn't really exist, but you could treat it as a force.
no, it absolutely does really exist. That's just something you're saying. So can
No, the centrifugal force is only from the perspective of the person spinning. From an outside perspective, the centrifugal force does not exist.
no, it exists on the object. It's an actual thing. So hey, let's cover this. Do you agree with these two first principles of logic?
Yeah,
So you do agree with the logic of non-contradiction and the excluded middle?
sure. Yeah.
Okay, so then contradictory claims cannot be true at the same time, and something either is or is not.
Yes.
Okay, so is gravity a force?
No.
Okay, so does Newton say that gravity is a force?
Yes.
So then Newton can't be correct.
And he isn't correct,
Okay.
but he's very close to being correct.
Well, what are we giving
And-
participation trophies now in physics?
And a lot of stuff can be modeled with Newtonian physics accurately.
Dude, do you remember I was talking about the difference in science and math?
Right, but I'm saying like we can apply Newtonian physics and see that it works pretty well.
What I mean, do you want a cookie? What's the relevance of that? That's what I don't understand. Like, who cares? It doesn't work. Like, if the Earth is orbiting the sun, it can't be true. So if you hold the belief the Earth's orbiting the sun, then that's not true. So we should not talk about it anymore, right? Like it's played out. Like it's like, who cares?
How does Newtonian mechanics not work if Earth is orbiting the sun?
Were you not here? Okay.
Probably not.
Okay, so can you see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, you see my really fancy straight from NASA.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So is this are these things that people call planets, are they moving in a straight line?
No.
So they're curving.
Yeah.
Okay, what does Newton say about an object that's curving?
That it can't curve unless it's acted upon by a force.
Okay. So then when Michelson-Morley tried to detect the Earth, do you agree that interferometry can detect circular motion?
I don't actually know much about the Michelson-Morley experiment, so I can't really say anything on there.
Okay. Have you ever heard of the Sagnac effect?
No.
Okay, it's using interferometry to detect circular motion. It's just nowadays lasers use lasers typically in crossing patterns, and you can detect something moving in a circle. If something's rotating, you actually the light will move at quote unquote different rates, but they'll say that it's not moving at different rates, right? Because it'll detect the rotation. This is supposedly what gyros use, like one of the major claims of Earth rotation, right? So interferometry detects circular motion. Now we've actually found out in 2004 that it actually detects linear motion as well, but we can't even get to that yet. So to understand why it can't be orbiting and be Newtonian at the same time is because that interferometry that was done by Michelson-Morley would have detected the Earth if it was actually going in a circular path, right? If it was going in circular motion, it would have been detected. It wasn't detected, so we have a couple options. One option is the Earth's not actually orbiting the sun, so there is no circular motion to detect. Option 2 is that the Earth is orbiting the sun, but not going in a circular path. Now that sounds pretty asinine to me, but that's what your side went with. And so what Einstein says is, yeah, it's going in an orbit, but it's actually free falling in a straight path. That's why the interferometry couldn't detect it. So if you don't have that explanation that the Earth is actually going in a straight line, then you can't explain Michelson-Morley not detecting the Earth's orbit. So Newtonian mechanics was debunked, objectively refuted from your paradigm's perspective in 1887.
All that free fall means is that gravity is the only force acting upon an object.
No, actually, that there's no force acting upon it, and gravity's not even a force. You going back, see, like that's what I'm saying. The way they tricked everyone into believing this lie is they taught everyone Newtonian mechanics, and that's all anyone knows. Is gravity's a force, mass attracts mass. That's all they know, and how to work out that like 5-year-old equation. They're like really proud of being able to solve for G, which like you could literally teach a 12-year-old that equation, right? But like that's not the actual belief anymore. You see why that would be a problem?
Z-phone.
Dude, you fell down a gravity well, bro. Where'd you go?
You probably had to go for a second.
I think you kind of missed the straight path part, right? The straight
Right.
path. Yeah, the straight path parts. Let's not talk about the free fall or the force, whatever. Like it's going in. Newton says it's curving. Einstein says it's going straight. Do you get that difference?
I mean, yeah.
Can those both be true?
Well, the thing is that in 3D space it is curving, but in 4D space it's going straight. There's a difference.
All right. So Einstein says that they are both true. You're right. From different reference points, right? Now, okay. Newton specifically says the Earth is not going in a straight path in any scenario. Einstein says
3D space.
that's right. Newtonian mechanics is very simple application. It has to keep going in a straight path unless an outside force acts upon it. That's Newton's first law of motion. Right? I explained that mechanics is a part of dynamics, right? So Newtonian gravity is a dynamic theory which requires mechanics. His mechanics are his laws of motion. So they have to both be true. We can't pick and choose. If Newtonian gravity is true, then Newtonian mechanics is true. It's the fundamental explanatory framework.
I actually have a very important question here.
Okay.
I want to clarify one of your question. The question for today is the question for today like more or less like, is the universe Newtonian or Einsteinian, or is it like, does Newtonian physics work as a model?
It doesn't work as a model. That's what I'm trying to explain to you.
But it definitely does.
But I just told you a
Work.
specific time it doesn't work.
You can apply Newtonian physics to a lot of things. You know, like my app that can tell me when the space station is going to appear overhead. That doesn't use 4D relativistic math. It uses Newtonian mechanics to tell me when the space station is going to appear overhead, and it works every single time.
Okay.
It tells me what position Jupiter's moons are going to be in. and it works every single time.
Okay, so your argument is that if the math can accurately work or works accurately in certain scenarios, then we can ignore all the times it doesn't work and then keep pretending it works anyway. So it just has to work sometimes. So then I can use any theory then.
Newtonian mechanics works almost all of the time.
It does absolutely not.
Again, it's not perfect, which is why there's relativity, but it works for a lot of things.
Can you explain to me, like, I guess this is the part I don't understand, right? You believe that the Earth is orbiting the sun. You believe in the mainstream model. The mainstream model requires Einsteinian gravity. It requires it. And for a very fundamental part of it, the Earth orbiting the sun. Like, it's required. If you really believe that the Earth orbits the sun, why is it that you feel the need to cling on to Newtonian gravity? Because it's not what you believe.
Well, because it's a lot easier to understand, and it does, for the most part, work.
Okay, and that's almost every Globber's answer, mind you, right? So shout out to Seafoam for being here and being honest. It's easier to understand. So because it's simpler and it works for some things, we're going to just keep using it even though we know it doesn't work for the major claim of the Earth orbiting the sun. I don't know why it just says F ... but you're feeding back. So if you can be on mute while you're not talking, that would be great. And then you can jump in, but just try to mute when you're not talking. Seafoam, you see what I'm saying here, right? Like, it's weird because we want to figure out, is this claim true, right? Like, is the Earth actually a ball that flies around the sun? And so we started looking into it. We found out, well, if it's true, for starters, Newton can't be right. And then everyone we talk to that tries to defend the idea tries to make us argue about Newtonian gravity. But like, that's not even the claim anymore. Like, it's weird. Yes, it's easier to understand. Yes, it's simpler. But your belief required an insane overcomplication to try to make it work. That should mean something to you. Like, my belief the Earth orbits the sun, to cling on to that belief required an immense overcomplication and complexity of something that was very simple and worked beforehand. All of a sudden we had to make it super complicated where a 1-page equation I can work out turns into a 7-page equation. Why? Is it possible that maybe your assumption is wrong that required you to make up the overcomplication? But no, it's easier to have your cake and eat it too, to keep the orbit and to keep the simple math, even though they don't work together. That's what's crazy.
Like, no, Newtonian physics doesn't govern the universe. You're right.
That's right.
And I'll never claim that, oh, yeah, this is because of a Newtonian physics. What I'm trying to say is that it can pretty accurately be modeled by Newtonian physics. Not that Newtonian physics is the governor of the universe, but that it works pretty darn well.
Who cares? So we're gonna now watch. This is what always happens. I bring this, like, the Globbers always say that, and then I use their own logic against them, and they switch up. So I'm telling you right now, what's gonna happen is you're gonna switch up. Okay, watch. So your argument is there's a mathematical construct that we can use that works pretty well, typically for things on the Earth and stuff like that. To get stuff like little g, for example. So if I can show you a mathematical construct that's electromagnetic that gives you big G and electrostatic equivalence with little g, and all the math works out, I can get the same exact value. It works every single time. So everywhere we need big G or little g, I can give it to you with the exact same amount of accuracy. It's actually slightly more accurate. With electromagnetism and electrostatics, it already exists. The math already exists objectively. Then therefore, we can use that with equal justification as using Newton, right? We can just use that if it's just about the math working. So now we're going to use electromagnetism. We're not going to use gravity anymore. No Globber will agree with that, though.
The thing is that gravity isn't, what Newton claims it is. Like,
Okay.
I think I might just be misunderstanding what your question is here.
My question is, can the claim that the Earth orbits the sun and that Newtonian gravity is correct exist simultaneously?
All right, then I would say no, because Newtonian physics doesn't govern the universe. Can it model it very accurately? Yes. But is it actually what's going on? No.
Using words like very doesn't mean much, right? That's just a subjective term that you're using. Like, it actually doesn't do it very good, right? Because the Earth and the solar system, which doesn't even work on the solar system scale, right, is actually like less than 0.00000, add like 1,000 more zeros, 1% of the universe. It doesn't work on the vast majority of the universe. So now you're going to move the goalpost to it works on the solar system and it works on the Earth. And then I point out, no, it doesn't work on the solar system. Mercury's perihelion shift off 43 arc seconds per century. So if it's a physics claim, if it's dynamically true, it's going to work on all the planets, but it doesn't. It also doesn't work on the Earth. For example, Michelson-Morley. We would detect the Earth's orbit if Newtonian gravity was true. We used Newtonian gravity's mathematical predictions. We then got a specific value. We didn't see it, so it can't be true. And it doesn't work anywhere on the quantum scale, and everything on the local scale and the bigger scales is literally comprised of the quantum scale. So this is now we're going to move the goalpost to, oh, well, if we ignore all that, we can keep claiming it works for the most part, and it's very accurate, and it works almost everywhere. And those are all patently wrong. It works almost nowhere. So it's useless. It's useless. It works almost nowhere. It's archaic from the 1600s. And if the Earth is orbiting, we know it can't be true. So if someone wants to propose the model that the Earth orbits the sun, they cannot talk about Newton anymore. It doesn't make any sense.
Like, the thing is, if Newtonian physics doesn't work like super duper accurately, then how do we predict, solar eclipses years in advance? How do we know where each planet is going to be in the sky? How do we know when the space station is going to appear overhead? Engineers all over the world, they use Newtonian physics to do their stuff.
Okay.
Newtonian physics is quite accurate. No, it doesn't explain everything. You're right. But for the most part, it does work.
Let's talk about engineers using it all over the world. Let's talk about that. So what do engineers really use? They use little g, right? Weight. That's what we actually use. Weight equals mass times gravity. Engineers, they just use weight. So little g. Little g is just an effect. Right? So yes, you can use Newtonian equations to get little g. That's correct. And lots of people use that. That's correct. Because they were just told to use it and it works to get little g, and then that accurately gives us weight because it's just downward acceleration. It's been measured, so it is going to be accurate. So people use it because it's accurate for intensive purposes. It's like, why not use it? Okay, I can show you a kinematic equation to get little g, and I can show you an electrostatic equivalence to get little g. That works perfectly. So even though engineers use it because that's what they were taught a long time ago, because it's simpler, it doesn't mean it's valid or any more valid than anything else, because I can use a kinematic equation, I can use an electrostatic equation for dynamics and get little g. That's all engineers use. So little g doesn't help us. We're trying to figure out, is the Earth the ball that flies through space? Engineers using weight doesn't help us at all.
I mean, like, even if we assume gravity is some sort of electrostatic effect, like, cool, that's still your gravity. And you can still plug that into hundreds of equations that end up working.
Well, it doesn't
really
work for your model, right? If gravity's electrostatic, you're in big trouble because you can't have these giant planets of these giant masses with these giant distances in a vacuum revolving around each other. Electrostatics would be way too weak.
Right. So
Plus, it automatically makes it a force.
And it makes it a force.
have a-
Yes, that's right. You're right, bro. It makes it a force. Electromagnetism or electrostatics makes it a force. Now we're going to go back to Michelson-Morley. Every glober
Yeah.
should have to learn Michelson-Morley before they ever defend the globe. Tell me what's up.
No, that's exactly what I was going to bring up. Is I would ask Seafoam why he thinks that Einstein derived special relativity, like from what? Why does it exist? Why do you
I'm
think?
not sure exactly why it exists. I will say that this whole gravity thing isn't my, wheelhouse here, so I'm trying my best.
Can I make a comment to him about if he's just going to accept like the Newtonian, you might as well flatten out the Earth. You might as well flatten out the solar system and flatten out everything. And because pretty much, I mean, if you take the equation, even big G, and you assign the masses to the planets, and then you assign the size of their, yeah, of course it's going to work. They work that out by, that's how they come up with the masses, by the math. It's not proving anything just because the math works is what is another way of putting it. But let me ask you a question. Do you think a force is what causes motion, or is the force motion?
A force causes acceleration.
Okay, so the acceleration itself, because you tried to compare centripetal force. So the force is so the acceleration itself is not the force. So F doesn't equal ma. Is that what you're saying, basically?
The force is the acceleration combined with the mass.
Okay, combined. All right. That's
Right.
all I
So
wanted.
like if a bee, like a little bee, flies into you at 10 miles an hour, it's gonna hurt a lot less than a car slamming into you at 10 miles an hour because there's more mass behind the car.
So with that answer, what is gravity then? What is gravity in your mind?
The bending of space-time.
That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, all right, real fast, man. Like, let me show this to everybody. So I'm showing it on Discord, and I'm gonna show it to the stream. Let me also read these super chats. Actually, let me come over to the solo cam real fast. Oh, what's up? What's up, fam? I know, I called it. I know. All right, let me read the super chats, and then we're gonna cover this real quick. So. Ali, yeah, thank you for the $2 super sticker. Much love. Unraveling Reality, thank you for the $2 super sticker. How do balloons, etc., overcome the electrical force? The buoyant force is significantly stronger than the 10 microamps per cubic meter. That's measurable and provable. Nominal, thank you for being a member for 15 months. After this schooling, the Globers will just imagine even harder. Unfortunately, you are correct. Thank you for being a member for over a year and 3 months. What a legend. Shout out to Nominal. Thank you, brother. Free Palestine, $5. Be happy, just off the spinning ball conspiracy. We are all flat earthers. Happy New Year. Yeah. Everyone should really understand, like, prepare themselves, because I'm telling you, my opinion, like, I'm pretty strongly convicted about, is that 2024 is going to be wild. But thank you for the super chat, and I agree. Level-headed, thank you for gifting 5 WitsitGetsIt memberships. Welcome to the Misfits, whoever got it. I got to make sure I start dropping the merch for you guys. All right. Free Thinking, thank you for the $20 super chat. Mindshock was right. Listening to Globers makes me want to give you money. That's hilarious. Are you saying I need to give the Globers commission for super chats? So after YouTube takes a 30%, after the Grabblers and then the Glober Grabblers, I'm not going to be getting any of it. Thank you for the $20 super chat, brother. Much love. Shout out to Mindshock Legend. YGG Drazil 999, $5. Foucault pendulum doesn't detect Earth rotation. Then what force is causing it to rotate 306 degrees? Well, it would actually be the ether drift coming from the sky, which is why it changes during eclipses and changes with altitude. This, ironically, another claimed globe proof actually proves that the Earth is not a globe. Thank you for the $5 super chat. The Plain Life, very generous, $100 super chat. Hey, thank you, brother. Much love. Is it really that complicated? These are all imaginary explanations. You don't have to be that smart to understand this. I agree. It's very simple. If the Earth's a sphere with a certain radius, then it's going to curve at a certain rate. It clearly does not do that. But what we found out is you have to actually deprogram people because they are under a spell. And one of them is mass attracts mass. So we have to deprogram people. And although some of these people aren't interested in being deprogrammed, so they won't be, watching them fight the deprogramming is going to help wake up other people. And so that's the thought process behind it. But thank you for the very generous super chat, brother. The plain life, much love. All right. So I'm going to come back over here and we're going to really quickly go through Einstein. Because one of the things that people say is Michelson-Morley had nothing to do with Einstein. Einstein didn't care about that. Some claim he didn't know about that, which is ridiculous. He point blank says that it was the first path that led him to special relativity. And they say it has nothing to do with it. Now, in reality, Einstein had to come in, propose relativity to save the globe model after Michelson-Morley. And this is a fact, right? This goes back to, look, you can believe it, but why are you trying to convince me of the belief if you have to lie to yourself about the belief? Like, you haven't even convinced yourself of the belief. Your belief has to be this. Look, I'm going to go full screen. I'm even going to show the Discord so you guys can see because I don't want to leave you guys out too much. All right, look. We're going to be a glober. Okay, this has to be your belief. There's actually no way around it. This is your belief. So look, if you want to believe this, that's cool, bro. We could be homies, bro. I'd play basketball with you, whatever. Okay, we can be homies. But this is your belief, and if you believe this, this is what you need to believe, okay? Here it is. Okay, so science continually progresses, and what we found out in 1887 is that our current understanding of mechanics and Newtonian gravity was wrong. We used to believe in the ether. We found out that's not true because if the ether existed with Newtonian gravity, then we would have detected the Earth's orbit, but we did not detect the Earth's orbit. So when we did Michelson-Morley, we didn't detect the Earth's orbit or the fringe shift that we expected. Do I need to be more nasally? So then what we did was we replaced gravity with Einsteinian gravity. And in order to fully keep our model with the Earth orbiting around the sun, we had to understand that we had to update gravity. So Einstein came in and he fixed the problem by saying that the Earth actually isn't going in a curved path. It's going in a straight path from the Earth. So we wouldn't detect the linear velocity or the linear motion of the Earth through with interferometry because interferometry only detects circular motion. Gravity is actually not a force. It's the effect of the bending and warping of space-time, and that the only time that it has a curved path is from an outside perspective. Einstein actually came in and attributed a constant speed to light because we saw different propagation rates in Michelson-Morley and similar tests. So we had to actually update all of physics to say that the Earth is actually not curving around the sun from the Earth, rather going in a straight line, free falling through a geodesic path of curved space-time, and that is how we explain Michelson-Morley. Michelson-Morley debunked the claim that the Earth moves around the sun within Newtonian mechanics, so we had to update it. And that's how science works. Science progresses, and so we found out that we know the Earth's orbiting the sun. That means that we now know that gravity is not a force, and we now know that the Earth isn't actually curving but going in a straight path, because without that, we wouldn't be able to explain Michelson-Morley. That is what you have to say. And if you believe in that, that's cool, but that's what you have to believe. So if you're still over here doing this right here, well, actually, Newtonian mechanics works perfectly fine for the most part, and it's simpler and it works good. Newtonian gravity hasn't been debunked. Einsteinian and Newtonian mechanics work just the same. Michelson-Morley had nothing to do with that. Michelson-Morley just debunked the ether. Einstein didn't care about Michelson-Morley. That had nothing to do with the Earth orbiting. They already knew the Earth was orbiting. All it did was debunk the ether. Einstein didn't have anything to do with Michelson-Morley. Newtonian gravity and Einstein are the same thing. It's equally valid. We can use Newtonian gravity. We get the same results. We get the same equations. It's the same thing mathematically. Newtonian gravity works for tons of things. We're going to keep saying mass attracts mass. It still works. It is still true. Whenever I ask what I'm asked what gravity is, mass attracts mass. Stupid flirts just don't understand that actually Michelson-Morley debunked the ether, and that's all there was to it, and Einstein had nothing to do with Michelson-Morley. If you have to do all of that, even if in your head, you're lying to yourself, bro. So why don't you step back and think, why is it I can't just really accept it for what it is? You're making it weird, bro. That's why I said, yeah, the Earth's flat. Don't make it weird. So don't make it weird. Believe in it if you want to. Just accept the belief for what it is and stop going around and bringing up Newtonian mechanics because it's archaic and it's stupid. We're not going back to the 1600s. We don't believe the sun is a god. We don't believe gravity is a direct act of God in a heliocentric model. We don't believe the sun's the center of the entire universe. We don't believe that nonsense, right? Your paradigm doesn't believe that. So, all right, hopefully, maybe that was it. That was the magic moment that everyone understands. Okay. Real fast, and I'm going to open it back up to everyone. I want to go over here and just quickly go through this. This can take a long time. I'm not going to take a long time, so sorry if it's kind of fast. The second class of facts to which we alluded has reference to the question whether or not the motion of the Earth in space can be made perceptible in terrestrial experiments. We've already remarked in section 5 that all attempts of this nature led to a negative result. Before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result. This is Einstein in Relativity, Special and General Theory, his own writing, right? What does it say right here? It says that before the theory of relativity was put forward, it was difficult to become reconciled to this negative result of all the attempts trying to detect the motion of the Earth in space. So every time they tried to detect the motion of the Earth, it didn't work with any experiment on the Earth. It was very difficult to explain that or to become reconciled with that fact that you can't detect the assumed motion of Earth in space until he put his theory of relativity forward. That is the end of the story, bro. Right? So, and let's see if this will work. And to further explain to you guys how this is just the way it works. I don't know if it's going to load, but. So, what he explains in this paper is that he calls the orbit of the Earth a rotation. And look, he says, like the rotation of Mercury. What? So he calls orbits rotation because, of course, they are. They're circular motion around a central axis. Right? And what it'll explain to you in this paper, right here. Okay. If the principle of relativity were not valid, we should therefore expect that the direction of motion of the Earth at any moment would enter into the laws of nature. What is that saying? It's saying that if it were not for relativity that I'm proposing, then we would actually expect that the direction of the Earth's motion would adhere to laws of nature. He's literally saying that relativity says that the motion of the Earth doesn't adhere to the laws of nature. And also that physical systems and their behavior would be dependent on the orientation in space with respect to the Earth, meaning that the physical systems on the Earth would actually be relative or dependent upon which direction they are in relation to the Earth moving through space. So if it wasn't for relativity, different tests on the Earth would be affected by the direction that the Earth is moving through space, and it would adhere to the laws of nature. Relativity says that's not the case. Okay, so it's basically a magic wave of a wand that can get rid of any and all evidence, because it says that, well, actually, on the Earth, the motion of the Earth is completely non-existent. You're not going to ever know. You're never going to see the effects of it. You're not going to ever be able to detect it. It's completely non-existent, doesn't adhere to the local laws of nature. That is literally what it says. And then it says, for owing to the alteration and direction of the velocity of rotation of the Earth in the course of the year, meaning the velocity of Earth's orbit throughout the course of the year is called a rotation. The Earth cannot be at rest relative to hypothetical system K throughout the whole year. Okay, however, the most careful observations have never revealed such anisotropic properties in terrestrial physical space, i.e. a physical non-equivalence of different directions. This is a very powerful argument in favor of the principle of relativity, or an argument in favor of the Earth not moving. Now, if you read right here, it says the word rotation was correctly changed to revolution in later editions. Now, why is that? Because they had to make a distinction between rotation and revolution, between rotation and the Earth's orbit. That's why they now call it revolution. What that clearly shows and denotes is an update to the way that the Earth's orbit was defined. It was previously defined properly as a rotation, circular motion around a central axis. Einstein literally changed the definition of the orbit from rotation to revolution, saying it's different, because it's actually free falling in a straight path through the curvature of space-time in a geodesic path. This is how he explained away Michelson-Morley. So he point blank says in his own paper that the Earth's orbit is rotation. It was later updated to revolution to make a distinction between the two. He points out that's required, relativity is required, to explain why we can't detect the Earth's orbit on the Earth. He point blank says it in his own paper. Here he says that without putting forth relativity, it was very difficult to reconcile the fact that none of the attempts to detect the motion of the Earth ever were successful. right? Then he goes on to very clearly say that in one of the most notable of these attempts, plural, meaning it's not just about Michelson-Morley, as other zealots will tell you, it's just one example. It's one of the most notable examples of these attempts. Michelson devised a method that should have been decisive in detecting the orbit of the Earth. It did not, right? So that the difference between these two times was exceedingly small, but they created an experiment using interference or interferometry, which would still allow the difference to be clearly detectable, even though it was very small. But the experiment gave a negative result, which was very perplexing to physicists, because if the Earth's orbiting, we should have got a result. Fitzgerald rescued the theory from difficulty by assuming that the motion of the body relative to the ether produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion, meaning that the actual body contracts in the direction that it's moving to explain away why we couldn't detect the Earth's motion, right? Yes, it says ether there because Lorentz and Fitzgerald weren't stupid, so they knew there had to be an ether because they understood electrical field theory. So then he says, we see also that and just understand that it produces a contraction of the body in the direction of motion, and that amount of contraction being just sufficient to compensate for the difference in time mentioned above, meaning it just so happens to contract just the perfect amount to make the Earth look like it's not moving. That is a Stillman. That is a Stillman, okay? Now people say, well, but that's just Lorentz. That's just the ether. Einstein didn't claim that the apparatus is contracting. Oh, on the contrary. He literally says here, comparison with the discussion in section 12 shows that from the standpoint also of the theory of relativity, this solution of the difficulty was the right one. Which difficulty was it? Lorentz and Fitzgerald rescued the theory from this difficulty. So when he says solution of the difficulty, he's talking about this solution of the difficulty, which was Lorentz and Fitzgerald saying that the body contracted. What difficulty was? Well, there was a negative result, and it was very perplexing to physicists why we couldn't detect the motion of the Earth. They rescued the theory from the difficulty by saying that the body contracted just the right amount to compensate for the missing time difference that should be showing the Earth moving through space. He said that from relativity, we see that also that is the correct solution to the difficulty, meaning the apparatus contracted from the viewpoint of the sun in relation to the sun just a sufficient amount to compensate for the missing time difference. Okay, all of that to say that it's point blank laid out in his own paper, right? That, and let me come over here. It's point blank laid out in Einstein's paper that he changed the definition of orbit and out of habit called it a rotation, then later changed that term in his later additions to revolution because he had to make a distinction between rotation and the Earth's orbit, because if it was a true rotation, we would have had to detect it. The reason that he changed the definition of the Earth's orbit was because in Michelson-Morley we didn't detect the Earth's orbit, which means if it was truly a rotation, true circular motion, we would have detected it. He's like, no, we're actually going in a straight line. The revolution is from a different reference point, that rotation, so we have to call it a revolution from the Earth to make a distinction between a true rotation, or heliocentrism will be debunked. So he's changed orbit. He says point blank that from relativity, we needed the same explanation to save us from the difficulty of not detecting the Earth's orbit. He says that actually he came across Michelson-Morley. It was the first path that led him to special relativity. He said that all the attempts to detect the motion of the Earth were negative, and until he put relativity forward, it was difficult to become reconciled with those negative results. All of this shows unequivocally, factually, objectively, indisputably, irrefutably that Einstein actually proposed relativity as a solution to Michelson-Morley and like tests that showed that you do not detect the Earth's orbit. Okay? So now we can just get that talking point out of the way. Your model needed Einstein to propose relativity to explain away the Earth's orbit not being detected. Therefore, the update to gravity and the mechanics entailed within was a requirement to keep the heliocentric assumption of the Earth's orbit intact. So if you believe the Earth is moving through space in an orbit, you must believe that Newtonian mechanics was debunked and that Einsteinian mechanics and Einsteinian gravity is the truth. Okay. All right, we're going to come back over to the full screen. All right, what's up, guys? You guys got anything you want to throw in?
Well, I'm disappointed that Seafoam left because this is the foundation of his belief system. And, either he has to understand this and take this in, or he has to understand and take in the fact that there's no motion of the earth. It's one or the other. Why isn't he up here addressing this? I don't know. There's no way around it. It's crazy. This is the foundational document. This was which paper is this specifically?
Relativity, the special and general theory by Einstein. This is his summarization of the two. He called it the version that your mother can understand.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So I mean, either way, this or on the electrodynamics of moving bodies, this is the foundation of modern physics. This is the foundation of these are high priests of our world. We live in a scientism world, and so this is, these are the high priest documents here. You should look at these. You should understand these, especially if you're going to come, try and defend this model, or that model. Then you should know what you're defending. And like Witsit's pointing out here tonight, there's a very particular reason that we can't just have Newtonian dynamics and Einsteinian, well, you got to pick special or general relativity, which is a whole nother topic. But yeah, you can't just, ad hoc one than the other. There's especially on this particular point, either we're moving, and there's, you fully absolve or you fully absorb special relativity, or we're not moving. And then you can go back to a classical framework that actually makes sense.
Has anyone here taken the position of a flat stationary plane or Earth?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Of course.
Okay. So if we're in a static environment, what gives us body weight if there's no gravity?
No one said there's no gravity. We just covered that there's a downward electric current on the Earth. But what we don't do on the show is just bring up random questions about flat Earth. But we want the people that think the Earth is moving, or that gravity is real, or that the Earth is a globe, to actually answer the questions on the chat. But here, before we maybe divert, let me read the super chats. Leo Crow, $10 super chat. Have you ever looked into nuclear fusion on the sun? There's no actual proof that this is happening. It is simply needed for their model. Yeah, there's all kinds of problems with it. From my understanding, there's way too much helium, so they had to make up this whole entire claim about the the center of the sun, the core of the sun. The solar, the spectrum itself, actually, the spectral lines show that it is evidence directly against nuclear fusion, but they just ignore that. And then you can look into things like the electric sun theory, which actually perfectly explains many of these phenomena that they hand-wave dismiss. And of course, it's always just post hoc reification. So, yeah, I've looked into it, and of course, it's just a made-up, ridiculous claim. Low Phenoil OF. Can't read your name, but thank you for the $20 super sticker. Much love, greatly appreciated. I have no idea what your name says. It's pretty crazy. Lisa, thank you for being a Miswit level 3 legend for 13 months. Shout out to you. Thanks for what you do. Much knowledge to be gained investing time in hearing what you have to say. Very intelligent young man. Thank you so much, and I'm glad that you appreciate it. So thank you again for being a Miswit. Shout out to you, absolute legend. JJ, Miswit for 6 months. Thank you, brother. Much love. What's it? Much love to you. Greatly appreciated. I think this is a good time actually for me to, since he brought that up, if you guys are down, because this is one of the questions technically. He brought up gravity, and one of the questions to keep it on topic with the show is this. So I'm going to show you guys Feynman real fast. So this will maybe answer your question if it was asked in good faith. Okay, so some of them may be discharged by ions collected from the air, but the current of these is very small because the air is a poor conductor. So this is explaining that there's 100 volts per meter going up, right? And that creates a downward current towards the ground. Of course, this is a horizontal ground with parallel lines of equipotential, but that creates a downward current. To get more specific, another thing that can be measured in addition to the potential gradient, which is the fact that there's 100 volts per meter, a gradient of potential as you go up, it's equipotential gradient. is the current in the atmosphere. The current density is small, about 10 microamps crosses each square meter parallel to the Earth. The air is evidently not a perfect insulator, and because of this conductivity, a small current caused by the electric field we have just been describing passes from the sky down to the Earth. So we actually have a downward electric current pressing onto the Earth, quite literally. That would perfectly explain the downward bias, i.e. gravity, i.e. weight. And weight is mass times gravity, is how we supposedly quantify it. Mass is just an absolute joke and has like 10 different definitions. They change them as we go. But mass is volume times density. So weight is volume times density times little g, or downward acceleration. This is the cause of the downward bias. If you read here, again, it makes the observed current. If you go a little bit further, although the electric density in the air is only a few microamps per square meter, there are very many square meters on the Earth's surface. The total electric current reaching the Earth's surface at any time is very nearly constant at 1800 amps. Now, it actually would be greater than this if the Earth is not only the size that they claim it is, which we know that it's clearly bigger. But the important part here is you see it says very nearly constant. So the electric current that's reaching the Earth's surface at any given time is very nearly constant, similar to how the rate at which things fall is very nearly constant. It's not actually constant. It fluctuates. It's not actually 9.8 every time. It moves around, but it's nearly constant, just like the electric current. What a coincidence. This current, of course, is quote-unquote positive, which actually just means charging. It carries plus charges to the Earth, which is where it discharges. So we have a voltage supply of 400,000 volts with a current of 1,800 amps, a power of 700 megawatts. With such a large current coming down to the Earth, right? So there you go. That's the actual evidence that can be physically measured in reality that would give us a downward bias. It would explain why things have a tendency down, and in order for them to go up, they have to have a buoyant relationship that creates this energy that overcomes that downward bias. So that would give you weight, that would give you little g, that would give you downward acceleration, that would give you everything that you need to explain real life phenomena, and it's completely ignored by people claiming that the Earth is a globe. So.
Well, if I could just add one thing, because just to clarify the position of beyond the imaginary curve, Witsit, I listened to your exchange out there. So the claim from mainstream is that there's a downward acceleration towards the Earth caused by gravity. I really appreciate what you're doing here, unpacking this, looking at Newtonian and Einstein, the differences, how explaining it so the public can get a clear understanding of what these theories actually are. But all I just wanted to add was, when we put the vessel, so a clear container with air and liquid in it, when we put it into free fall, buoyancy anyway goes into equilibrium, neutralizes and ceases to exist once in free fall. So right here we've got a vector which we're being told the Earth's moving in, but once we test that claim, it neutralizes. So we've got a problem with free fall, and I don't know if you're aware of that. If you are, fantastic.
Well, but like the conversation wasn't very productive because he was interrupting me. But like what we know for a fact is there's a downward electric current, right? And so that is a force that's moving down. We know that exists. So even whenever a gas or a liquid falls, that still exists. So any explanation is going to have to explain that, right? His argument basically still, man, from my current understanding, is that why is there no displacement, and that requires you invoke uniform acceleration. And I would say very succinctly, can you actually prove that there's quote unquote no displacement? Because of course, when you're free falling, you're going to counter the downward force. You're moving in relation to it, meaning that the net difference is decreasing because you're moving in the same direction the force is trying to move you, right? And so there would still be displacement, but you would have to have very precise measurement. And no one that pushes this argument has ever even offered me a measurement. What they do is they show me a video and they say, look, it doesn't look like it's being displaced. And then they straw man you with uniform acceleration, when in reality, we know that the acceleration is not uniform. It changes, measurably so. The same object will fall at different rates at the same place over and over and over. Then that person will say, oh, well, yeah, there's other things involved, like electrostatics or whatever. So they have to actually double back on the uniform acceleration claim once it's pressed, but then their whole argument requires the uniform acceleration straw man, right? And so that's the major problem. So I'm pretty sure I just still manned it, and it's pretty easily debunked.
No, I appreciate it. I think I don't know how I heard you say 2024 is going to be exciting. I think we're really closing in. It's taken, some people 10 years to get to this point. But, you've basically got globe, flat with a dome, stationary, concave, and this upward moving Earth. And if we can whittle it down, if it's not globe and it's not concave and we're closing in on this. It's exciting because there's only a limited set of possibilities, information, data, and the whole human species is on this. So we're eventually going to find out what this place is. I'm confident in that, and so I applaud everyone on this because we're getting to the finishing line, and then what's going to happen from there is anyone's guess.
Yeah, I think 2024 is going to be very interesting. Very big. Podcasts are talking about it, etc. You know what's crazy, man, is like the ballers never pop in. The ballers never pop in. I mean, we have a decent amount of people here. Let's see. What do we have on the YouTube? We got 558 on YouTube. So, I mean, that's a decent amount of people. We don't have a ton on Rumble. 23 and 23 on Rockfin. So, we got like just over 600 people, or right around 600. Is it again?
I mean,
550, yeah, 600 people.
Not even people, just like anybody. Just ask questions if you're on the fence, if you want to know more. Like, cause
there are ballers in your YouTube chat chatting with each other about Star Wars. But they won't come up to your side.
Of course they are, dude.
Cog disc break, just. I still want to know if it's not Michelson-Morley that Einstein had to create special relativity for. Like, what was it? Why did he create it? If it wasn't Michelson-Morley.
Well, on the motion of electrodynamic bodies or whatever it's called, he specifically says he only lists two things in the whole paper. He mentions Michelson-Morley, and then he brings up an quote unquote from the paper imaginary physical experiment. That's all he references.
That's it.
Just his clock experiment, which doesn't even work in reality, and then Michelson-Morley.
I mean, if anyone's got some journals of Einstein or some unpublished manuscripts, anything that shows anything else would be much appreciated.
I got a question for you, Toby.
What's that, Alan? You already muted?
Boo.
Dang.
Dude,
Wow,
the feds got him, man. Jesse's in his house right now as we speak.
Oh, no.
Angles.
He's being raided, bro. Jesse had to get Alan first. He's too dangerous. Let me give like a little real quick recap on camera because some people get triggered that I'm never on camera. So just so you guys understand, if you're kind of late to the stream, we're talking about how it's weird that everyone that believes that the Earth is a globe that spins around the sun or whatever, spins, tilts, wobbles, flies around the sun and blah, blah, blah. Like they all talk about gravity as Newtonian gravity. They're like, if you say, what is gravity? They're like, it's the force that keeps us to the Earth. Like, well, no, actually, it's not a force. What is gravity? Mass attracts mass. No, it's not. That's not what it is anymore. Right? So Newtonian gravity is no longer permissible if you believe the Earth is flying around the sun, quite literally, for many reasons, and we covered many of them, but specifically that they make directly contradictory claims, they being Einstein and Newtonian gravity. Okay, and we're going to cover the four really quick there. I'm going to pop it back open to the panel, but we got number one is that Newton requires an ether. This is because Newtonian equations have no time variable, which means that it's instant. If it takes no time for the gravity to happen, that means it's instant. That requires instantaneous action at a distance. Immense distances, mind you, in this current model, right? So if the sun is pulling Pluto around it, then that means that instantly gravity is pulling Pluto around it from that crazy distance, right? So hundreds of millions of miles, and it's instantly there. There's no time variable. That requires there be some medium there where gravity's already present and it's touching Pluto and it's touching the sun at the same time. That's called mutual contact. It requires exclusive mutual contact to give you instantaneous action at distance to satisfy the requirement of Newtonian gravity, right? That's why he said that there must be a medium, and whether it's material or immaterial, I don't know. I've left up to the readers, but it has to be there. And anyone that thinks that it can happen without it being there in a vacuum through great distances is absolutely retarded. Okay, so he knew there had to be an ether. He ended up writing a whole paper about the ether. Einstein said there absolutely is not an ether. So those cannot coexist. One says we cannot have an ether. One says we have to have an ether. Okay, Newton says that space is absolute and fixed, something you can measure again. It's absolute, it's consistent, it's there, it's fixed, it's absolute. Einstein says nothing's absolute, much less space, right? And the only thing that's absolute is light, the speed of light, and because you have to have something to measure against. So that's why they use c, the constant c of light, to measure everything. So space is not absolute and fixed, or space is fixed. Opposite claims cannot coexist, right? One says an object will continue in a straight path unless an outside force acts upon it, Newton's first law of motion. Einstein says no, an object can actually go in a straight and curved path simultaneously with no force acting upon it, like the Earth. Even though it's orbiting around the sun, it's actually going in a straight path, free falling through the curvature of space-time in what's called a geodesic path, like the shortest path from one point to another on a globe would be a geodesic, right? And they say that that's it's curving and it's going straight, but from the Earth it's just going straight. This was needed to explain why we didn't detect the Earth orbiting around the sun in Michelson-Morley. If Newton was true, then you would have had actual force acting on the Earth, moving it in a circle, a circular motion, in a rotation, and it would have then given us a fringe shift. We didn't get the fringe shift. Einstein said, oh, you didn't get it because this Earth's actually going straight. So what we found out in 1887, and then it was solved for your paradigm, quote unquote solved, right? With a wave of the magic wizardry wand of Einstein saying, oh, well, the Earth's going straight. That's why you don't detect the circular motion. Of course, Michelson-Morley didn't detect the circular motion of the orbit because it's actually going straight. Okay, so it's fundamentally different. If you believe that the Earth's orbiting the sun, you cannot believe in Newtonian mechanics. So if you go around saying mass attracts mass and gravity is the force that holds us to the ground and all this stuff, that's just patently wrong. And if you then say, but I can use it to explain the planets and it works for the planets except for Mercury, but that's too small to worry about and engineers use it and all this stuff. No, the math works in certain specific scenarios, right? Significantly less than 1% of the universe, but math is just a description. I can describe unicorns. I can say shooting stars are actually unicorns, and when they go super fast, their horns light up and illuminate, and then we see them as shooting stars, but they're actually flying unicorns, right? And meteors are actually Superman and all of his siblings. And so I can give you a math to show you the sporadic meteor showers. I can give you a math to show you how long it's going to take the Superman to get across the sky. And be like, look, the math works. That doesn't mean it's Superman. Superman would be the claimed cause or explanation of the shooting star or the meteor. It would be Superman's going across the sky. I can show you an equation for Superman flying. It'll work. It satisfies, for example, Newtonian mechanics. I could then apply it to the stuff in the sky and show that it works. But that does not mean that shooting star is Superman. Science explains, math describes. The fact that something can adequately describe something mathematically doesn't mean anything. It means just that. That it's just it's a permissible description. It's a language. Math is abstract. It's concept. It's just a description. Science explains. Science explains, math describes. Very important to understand that. So then when we point out you can't use Newtonian anymore because that explanation doesn't work. Physics is about real life, reality, explanation. Science needs explanatory power. If your belief is true, it should be explained in terms of physics, not just described in terms of mathematics that don't match reality. Not only is that true and you can't use Newtonian mechanics because of that, the math doesn't even work for either one of them in the vast majority of it. So not only is math not sufficient in and of itself, it doesn't work. The math doesn't work, and you need an explanation because you're making a claim of physics about the natural world. You need to be able to demonstrate it and show viability physically. If you believe the Earth is orbiting around the sun, you cannot use Newtonian mechanics. It cannot be true. So why would people going around talking about, well, it's good enough, it's simple, it's easier to understand, well, it works in some places, or lying and claiming that they're the same? Okay, so I know it was a big rant. Always say it'll be quick, and I end up saying more, and I always talk faster than I meant to, but hopefully you guys followed that, and it's very simple. There's something called the law of non-contradiction. Something cannot something cannot be contradictory. Two things cannot be contradictory and simultaneously true at the same time. And there's something called the excluded middle, right? That something either is or it is not. There is no middle, like wave particle duality, or the door is opened and closed, right? So the table's wet and dry. Like, no, it either is or it is not. And something cannot be contradictory and true at the same time. Okay? These are two first principles of logic, literally, the first things. If you're going to teach a child logic, that's the first thing you teach. If you say that Newton and Einstein are both true, but they make contradictory claims, you're literally violating the most basic principle of logic, okay? So all I have to say, look, man, if you believe the Earth's a globe and it flies through space, that's cool. Just understand your belief. Your belief requires the bending and warping of space-time, and even that does not work. You cannot believe in Newtonian mechanics anymore. So don't come trying to convince other people of your belief, much less being condescending and talking down to them about not believing your belief when you've not yet convinced yourself of your belief. And that's our point. Our whole point of bringing this up is to say, look, we're not having conversations about Newton anymore. We're not talking about the archaic, outdated, disproven belief system that people used to hold to back in the day within your paradigm. It's outdated. It's archaic. It's been superseded. It's been thrown away. It doesn't work, right? It's been disproven. If the Earth is orbiting the sun, Newtonian mechanics cannot be true. Now, of course, both of those things have been disproven, but if you believe the Earth's orbiting the sun, you definitely can't bring up Newton. And so 2024, we're not talking about Newton anymore. We're just not going to do it. And if we have to have this conversation 100 times, I can't speak for everyone else, but I'll have it 100 times. I don't care. I'm not talking to you about Newton. I don't care what you're talking about. If you want to debate the Earth's a globe that flies through space, we're not talking about Newton anymore because it's not even the real discussion. It's not the real model. We're here, in conclusion, we're here to figure out the truth. Most of these people will tell you, we don't know exactly what the Earth is. We have no idea. We're trying to figure out what it is. What we've discovered is what it is not. And if we're trying to figure out what actually is, what is reality, we don't want to come around and circle jerk with concepts and ideas and just play pretend and let's talk about Newtonian mechanics, even though it's not actually true and we know it can't be true. Let's talk about it for hours and hours and years anyway. No, we want to figure out what is true. We're looking for reality. If you want to convince us, or you are convinced that reality is the Earth is a tilted, wobbling, spinning cartoon ball with water bending convexly to the exterior, spinning in a vacuum, defying the second law of thermodynamics, flying around the sun 66,600 miles per hour, then you need to actually defend that model. Don't come and defend non sequiturs and claim that somehow they're joined at the hip. All right, cool. Come back over here. All right, sorry, I thought that was going to be a little shorter, but anyone else on the panel want to throw something in? I think the Globbers are scared.
Dude, that was an epic summary, and I wanted to point out, so with the law of non-contradiction and all that, if you, Toby pointed this out the other day, if you go to Einstein's paper and just read the first page where he's talking about how the whole premise of the theory is to not invoke absolute space, and then he goes on to later, with his thought experiments to reify his position. He invokes absolute space with the twin paradox to explain how the twin on the return trip is younger, or is younger than the twin that stayed on the planet or whatever. And it's like, because according to relativity theory, you can't differentiate between who's accelerating towards who, right? So so they can't both be older and younger than each other at the same time, like they say with atomic clocks. So they differentiate this with people, right? So they don't even apply it, right? Like it literally invokes absolute space to even conceptualize, to even begin the role play. So it
that's hilarious.
Right off the gate. Off the gate, page 1, it contradicts itself.
Dude, if you wanted to teach anyone the law of non-contradiction, just show them Einstein's paper. I mean, literally, it's the most efficient way. But yeah, that is a very interesting point, that for all of their concepts, they actually have to invoke a stationary lab frame and absolute space for almost all of them. How funny is that? You can't even try to convince us of your wizardry without invoking what you claim is not true.
They invoke it as a placeholder to use that as a justification to use a mathematic framework that denies the absolute frame that they used to even get into the framework to begin with. It's so crazy when you look at what they're doing based off of that experiment, or based off Michelson-Morley. It was like, just to maintain Earth's motion, they were like, nope, let's redefine all of physics. Like they only took 6 measurements, guys. The experiment was like 6 days long, or it was 6 days. They took measurements over the course of 6 days, and they redefined all the physics over that.
How epic
Like
is that? Those guys were legends.
they obviously knew about the proportional relationship that would be produced with these fringes. Like, we've been digging back in history, and they've known since at least the early 1800s about, splitting light beams and getting proportional relationships off the angles and all that. They didn't just do Michelson-Morley on a whim and then redefine all the physics, for no reason. They already knew and they had to explain why there was no like this is like getting ahead of the curve, like publishing that and then coming up with Einstein to explain it all to wrap it up in a bow. Because it completely contradicted everything that they thought about Earth's motion.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm never gonna let it go. I'm not letting MMX go. I'm not letting the contradictions of relativity go. I'm not letting the variance of light go. I'm not letting the death of Newtonian gravity go. I think it's a trick to get us to talk about other things. That's why certain people in this community that insist on that very approach, right, avoiding those things, are highly suspect. It's the whole thing. It's the whole freaking thing. The whole deception really got cemented when all logic got flipped on its head and people were all brainwashed into being relativist. And now we have moral relativists because everything is relative. And they think it's logical. Like, oh, science is relative. Everything's an illusion. Everything is backwards. Everything's relative. Even morality. I cannot know what's true, right? It's deeper than people realize. Like, I'm not going.
Pseudoscience.
Yeah. Let me read these
Straight
super chats. No cow cracks. $10 super chat. Thank you, brother. Witsit, what is Starlink? So much of FE makes sense. I've seen things beyond the curve, but what do you make of tech I'm using to watch you now from the Globbers? Okay, of course, you're not using it to watch us. You may be using Starlink actually to watch us. I don't know. Seems unlikely, but yeah, I don't dispute that Starlink is up there. I've seen it, right? I actually think you can catch an ether drift at higher altitudes and there's less resistance and that you're actually able to use even electrogravitic propulsion. I think that you could even just use high altitude balloons. I think that you can actually just catch the ether drift and it could be a combination of the three. It could be different technology for all three of them. There is no doubt that you can do that. What we've actually found out is that the variance of the propagation rate of the information or the light that all of those things are engineered with specifically prove the Earth is not moving. And we know that the globular part of it is just a transform. So it's just a coordinate system transform. So yeah, things can move in a circle over top of the Earth. In fact, I don't see why it wouldn't be the case because we know there's an ether drift. So we know that it seems to actually cause the weather patterns, the trade winds, the differences at different altitudes. It seems to all be a giant torus field with different motions, and there's an ether drift that is effectively directly measured, but it's actually indirect. Let's hold it to the same standard, and that would be my answer. I think that they know that. I think that the vast majority of people that do aerospace engineer don't know that, and all you would have to do is basically reverse engineer the actual drift, call it rotation, right? Factor in the transforms, then teach that to everyone. Everyone would then design the things to work on what they think is a spinning globe, but actually they're using real inertial forces, actual ether drift, a stationary Earth. They're running it through the globular transform, and they're building tech for a stationary flat Earth while they think they're doing it for a globe. And you could throw it up there, catch the drift. And how convenient. They say you throw it up there, it starts free falling around a ball. No, you throw it up there and there's a drift. So long answer, but good question. So think of it, $10 super chat. The last one right now is Daniel McLaughlin. Thank you for the very generous $50 super chat, brother. WitsitGetsIt, keep up the good work. Will do, and thank you for the support, man. I greatly appreciate it. And I will keep up the good work. 2024 is going to be a very interesting year. All right, back to the panel.
Before we move on, I wanted to add on to Starlink. So if you guys have ever used like LTE internet service or for your phones or what have you, right? If you do a speed test and you look at the latency of that, you'll see it's pretty low. It's usually under 1 second. It's usually like what is it, like 80 milliseconds, or yeah, 80 to like 90 milliseconds. Sometimes it's like 70. So that's pretty good, right? And if you do a Starlink test, it's pretty similar, right? And if you've ever used actual so-called satellite internet, dude, that's like 1.5 seconds to 2 second delay. Like it's not even close. So whatever Starlink is, whatever that service is, it can't possibly provide a latency of sub 1 second if it's quote unquote a satellite in space. So, and I've seen the what they call Starlink go by or whatever in the sky a couple times, and yeah, there's like, dude, like whatever service that provides, it's not possible at whatever distance they try to say it is, right? So just wanted to throw that out there. If you're familiar with like latency and gaming and that kind of stuff, if you've ever tried to game on satellite internet, it's not possible. Like it's not even real internet. It's insane. So the fact that you could use Starlight for anything is like tells me that it's definitely not the same whatever they use for quote unquote satellites to provide people with internet service with.
Well, yeah, you can see Starlinks, man. I mean, like they're super long and clearly flat, like straight, like parallel to the Earth, and seemingly a lot closer than they would claim, right? I mean, you can just see them. They claim they're super far away, and they do not look like they are anywhere close to that far away, right? So, yeah, I actually looked into it. They claim decent speeds. I looked into it when I had an RV. We were staying in the RV.
Yeah, they're super decent. Like it's usable. You can game on it. It's definitely not a satellite.
Yeah, it seems like you have to have a clear view of the northern sky, and you have to give them your location. It didn't work for the RV because we were going to be moving around, and it's really like the northern portions that currently have it. But yeah, they're creating a Skynet. I think that's going to be used for surveillance. I think that's much more local, and I think they catch the ether drift. Yeah, exactly. The intel agency that no one knows about.
Biggest growing industry in the world.
NoCal Rocks just dropped another $10 super chat. Thank you. He said, so basically what they say is low Earth orbit is ether drift. I think that is possible. Yeah, I think you can use electrogravitic propulsion and catch the ether drift. Yeah, absolutely. Because we know that there is an ether drift. And if you look at, say, what they call the ISS, if you look at it on a plane, like it just makes the flower of life, right? It makes the torus field, matches the Ferrel cell image perfectly. So I think that based on what angle that you reach a certain altitude, right, you're going to catch one of those field lines and you're going to move around the Earth riding those field lines. You're going to go in a cycle throughout the field. That's one option. I also think, I think the ISS is in no way what people think it is, but people may think what I think is crazy. I think it could be something that has like spiritual undertones, but anyway, I don't think people put it up there necessarily. But anyway, I think they saw something, and I'll just say it. The scriptures imply that basically, like even Babylon itself is actual physical city that can move up into the sky. That there are actual cities in the sky. And I know it sounds crazy, but it's not just the scriptures that say that. And if that is true, in speculation station here, they may just observe when they present themselves and then come up with a story as to how they put it up there, right? I mean, that's not impossible. But either way, I think that they catch the ether. I don't know. What does the rest of the panel think about it? Because this is a hiccup for this guy. What do you guys think about quote unquote satellites? I plan on having really nailing that down in 2024. I think we all kind of talked about how that's the next big thing, right? We've ripped away so much of what they claim. We've really ripped away GPS and GPS satellites, and we've shown it proves the Earth's not moving and all this. But everyone has the question of how does it work on a flat Earth? And I think that's the next major thing that we all need to put our minds together on and actually find the gems that just completely destroy what they claim.
Just to add on to what you were saying, they definitely have, quantified, measurements of the ether velocity being higher at altitude or being greater at altitude, and it just follows with kinematic measurements that have been made of the ether that as you would go higher up, and if there's less pressure, then there would be a greater, basically the less. less density of the medium, the greater the ether flow can move at. So it would follow just purely from investigation that we've done into the ether wind. It would follow that at altitude, the speeds would be super great. And we don't even know what's going on up there. I know with like certain types of missiles, they quote unquote skip them across the atmosphere. So there's something going on up there. They can't even model the quote unquote ionosphere. All their simulations have tons of errors and problems. They say it's, generated by cosmic rays, but then they don't even know where the rate of the cosmic rays, or like, it's all, what's going on in the sky is not understood in the mainstream whatsoever. There's definitely some things being obfuscated from us, and
that's for sure. Yeah. Monte Carlo simulations, bro. Monte Carlo simulations.
Yeah, just one last quick note. Something else that Alan has brought up recently is that they actually specifically have to account for the banking of the elliptical in the GPS satellites. So that's the whole concept. If you're, the type of person that, was maybe starting to be skeptical of the motion of the Earth, and you're thinking, well, yeah, there's an elliptical of the orbit. So maybe we can't detect any of the motion, but that elliptical, maybe I should be able to detect that. Although, as Witsit pointed out tonight, actually, if you're buying into the religion, then you can't even believe that, because you would have to buy into the relativistic explanation of the geodesic path that you're moving on. But in any case, going back, what the point is, they actually specifically have to account for that elliptical motion when it banks around that corner there. That particular motion is accounted for in the range measurement equations of GPS satellites. So all that is to say that, just like, it's funny how the math of satellites, one of the things that you try to look at some people would look at as a globe proof, actually debunks the idea of the Earth being in motion. But yeah, like, I can't say what it is up there. I can definitely say that the government's never going to tell me all of their military undertakings. If there was some kind of usage of phenomena in the sky, then I think it's totally possible that that's obfuscated from all of us. Why in the world are all of the quote unquote world governments working together on these sky phenomena? There's something fishy about that. Like the ISS, they go up there, they've got something up there for the ISS, but then all they can do with it is have crazy hair and brush their teeth, and like, just, it's a bunch of theatrics. They're building all these, like, I'm going on a tangent, so my bad. All that is to say, whatever it is, I have no idea, but there's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. And some interesting things here, right? So, like, we know the ether drift increases as you get higher. Logically, it would do that because you're in a giant vortex and you're getting higher to the source. And I would actually say it's a misnomer. People think that the quote-unquote North Pole is in the center on the surface, but actually that wouldn't be the true North Pole. The North Pole would be up near Polaris, right? And our compass would just move towards the pressure mediation that's so intense in the center in relation to how far away you are from the quote-unquote North or South Pole, which would be far below you. The compass is going to start to move over there. That actually explains fluctuations and where the compass points and stuff like that, right? Because there's pressure mediation within that local centripetal convergence of the magnetic field. All that to say, you're getting closer and closer to the sky. And then if the density of the air goes down, you have less resistance, and it gets colder. And we know that colder environments is perfect for things like quantum locking or magnetic levitation. And so it may just be that they went up real high and they discovered, you have like no resistance. It gets real cold. You have like this ether drift. You have electromagnetic capabilities, electrogravitic propulsion. You can send things to perpetually surveil the sky. You can also put balloons up there, which they do that a lot. And it's very sketchy that no one knows that. They didn't tell us that there are thousands and thousands of balloons constantly being put up above us, coming down anywhere from 14 to 28 days, allegedly, or even longer. They're catching them and replacing them. They're shooting them off every day. That they have crazy, crazy balloon surveillance that no one really knows about, right? So all that to say, there's many different things that are going on. I really think what we need to do is we need to break down the phenomenon. Like, okay, what's the most verifiable evidence that this is actually there? Like, okay, here's a CubeSat. What's the CubeSat? What's actually going on? We need to bury satellites in 2024. And that is like the only thing left. That's basically the only thing left, right? That people get really caught up on that. And the Southern Star Trails, which we've pretty much explained sufficiently in like 4 different ways. There's nothing left. The globe has nothing, which is terrible because one refutation of the globe ends the conversation. But we've gotten to the point where every single thing that they have said or claimed or brought up has been refuted. And real fast, let me read this. My boy Rakia Life, very generous, $100 super chat. Shout out to my boy. Frequents the Discord. Everyone knows him. He's a legend. Actually in here right now, I believe. Shouldn't my arms be longer? People will remember our names. 2024. That's true, bro. I think that we are the leaders of the new school. Yeah, maybe your arms do need to be a little bit longer, bro. Pump the brakes. But thank you for the very generous super chat, bro. Obviously, Rakia is a legend. That's my homie, brother. And Justin Johnson gifted 5 Miswits memberships. So whoever got them, welcome to the Miswits. I'm going to make sure I remember to drop all the merch. We have like nice embroidered hoodies now. It's super dope. So rock your Miswit merch and go out there. Maybe it's kind of a conversation starter. Miswits, speak up. And then we'll drop the heliophobic merch soon. All right, Alan, did I see that you were about to say something?
Yeah, I put 2 pictures in the chat. So, we were discussing satellite orbits, right? And how that's really bad for the geodesic free fall stuff, right? That they say. So, how they were like, okay, well, Earth's in a circular path around the sun, but it's actually a geodesic linear free fall, blah, 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 right? So the same applies to satellite orbits, right? So from our perspective on Earth, we launch a quote unquote satellite in its elliptical orbit around Earth and it's doing its free fall thing, right? But actually that's just how it looks like from our perspective. If all reference frames are equally valid, then from the reference frame from, Mars, for example, right? That true motion is actually going to be different from how we perceive it. So when we're syncing the clocks and all that stuff and making this system, right? What we would find is, this system is off based on like the motion that we're looking at isn't corresponding to the corrections that we have to make. And like, I wonder why. It's like, and then like, we do a transformation equation for Mars and we see that the true path isn't an ecliptic, it's a cycloid. So it's just kind of like coming in and out without actually doing like a rotation, right? And so that's a different type of motion, different type of acceleration. So different type of corrections would have to be applied for that true geodesic path motion if it actually existed. So, and in addition to that, right, when you're perpendicular and parallel to planes of motion, you gain that acceleration gets added to those corrections, right? So if the Earth so in those pictures that I put in there, there's one that shows the cycloid orbit versus the ecliptic, and then the other one is the different velocity vectors. The planes of motion when the satellite is parallel and perpendicular to them. So you would catch like a 30-kilometer drift, and you would catch a 700-kilometer mile an hour drift, based off of relative to the CMB, and then you would catch one from the sun relative to the center of the what is it called? The center of the Milky Way galaxy, right? So you'll catch another 320 kilometers a second, while the satellite's free falling at different points, right? They don't make any of these corrections. They explicitly correct for the ecliptic path. So it's true motion. So there's no, all reference frames are equally valid, geodesic free fall. Nope, that's out the window. GPS falsifies that. It corrects it explicitly to a geocentric stationary frame that's synced to sidereal time, meaning the rotation of the stars. That's a huge problem for anyone that thinks the globe is free falling around anything and all these things, because those corrections would reflect in GPS technology, and it explicitly doesn't.
That's rough, bro.
It's super rough, dude. It's super rough. Because like some of the only corrections they make are accounting for their own absolute velocity relative to what they call the center of the ECI coordinate system. So that's just a fancy way of saying it's accounting for its own velocity, like whatever's carrying the atomic clock, whatever speed that is, it's accounting for that through absolute space. That can't happen in their model. A free fall orbit is a local inertial frame to them. There should be no there's no force acting on it in their model, right?
Exactly.
So relevant to tonight's discussion. Such a perfect tie-in.
What's so funny is that you still have the ballers talking so reckless in the chat. It's like, just come to the VC. If you refresh the stream, you'll see that now the Discord link is actually a little button. So it's even easier. Even you globber freaking out in the chat, you can go. It's just a button. Just click the button. It'll take you to the Discord. We'll get you checked in super quick. You'll get the pop up here. And you'll get to tell us about how you're so globe. It says, I'm afraid to debate Professor Dave. And I guess that's why I've shown the receipts of how he came up with 7 different excuses of why he couldn't debate me 4 years ago. And just to address it in general, I'm just saying, like, guys, just come in and talk. You can see that we're cordial. I think that sometimes we don't go about this discussion the right way. I think we should be very cordial and intellectual. And even I've messed up in that place sometimes. And I think it should be very consensual, right? And that's why we're launching that membership program. We're creating this community. One of the things that we're going to be discussing is like how to effectively discuss some of these tougher subjects with people, and it needs to be consensual. Now, these people that are coming in here, obviously it's consensual. It's just weird because they're not actually consenting to the real conversation, right?
No, they all want, dude. Everyone really wants you to do solar system dynamics night. That's what all the globers are waiting for.
Yeah.
They'll be lined up out the door.
Yeah, like the solar system works.
They'll be lined up out the door to tell you about what they learned about in elementary school.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? It's like, it's pretty weird. It's like you're coming, and this is what it is. So they've convinced themselves that flat Earth is stupid because that's a way more cushy, comfortable position, right? Like to convince yourself that flat Earth is stupid. And so if you actually believed that, if you convince yourself of that, then your refutations of flat Earth are also going to be stupid, right? They're going to be very low level because you don't think that you need high level stuff because you think it's stupid. And so they're actually still here at step 1 where they think that like the word solar system and the word gravity and mass attracting mass and that really cuts it, or the fact that there are seasons, you know. And I really hope whoever sees this or whatever, like, dude, you should realize that that's what's going on, and that's kind of weird. If you have to, like, what do? Do you sort out when you hear Al and Toby and I talking right now, and you're like, these people are making lots of sense, or they're way more informed on this subject than I am, and I don't even understand what they're saying, and I would need to do a lot of research, and they know about everything that's being brought up to an insane degree, but they're stupid, they don't know anything. Like, I mean, yeah, don't make it weird, bro, because you guys are gonna feel goofy by the end of 2024 because Flat Earth's about to pop off, and I am positive that Flat Earth's gonna pop off this year, 100% positive. And yeah, just don't be late to the party, man. Sorry, just kind of random rant there, but yeah, I mean, what do you guys think though? Do you like? I told you guys what my approach is gonna be, and my approach is gonna be more like, okay, let's talk about this motion thing, right? Let's talk about motion first, geocentrism, and then really taking away Newtonian gravity. So taking away motion, taking away the solar system, taking away Newtonian gravity.
It's really important to do it that way because the kinematic success of Newtonian predictions of things that move in the sky, you know, and that covariant relationship with Kepler's model, they use to reify everything. So it's like, okay, if that's true, then where's your fringe pattern? And then they're like, well, we don't have one because relativity. And it's like, okay, but a satellite is correcting for its own absolute velocity. Like and then you get into the other interferometry stuff, and it's like, well, it turns out that we don't have an orbital velocity, boys. You know, like you really have to dismantle it on that level because they still try to fall back on like the relationship between, well, if I drop my cell phone, I know it's going to hit the ground, and like so therefore when we apply that, you know, to things that move in the sky, like there's still a relationship there, even though for some reason we just can't measure the Earth. And it's like, no, we have to take it all away. Like it's all kinematics, and it failed. And then they tried to reify it with a different model where they use tensor calculus, where you can change the boundary conditions or the initial input to get whatever you want out of it. And no one's checking that framework or criticizing that. You know, there was a guy that tried that recently, Stephen Crothers. He lost his PhD. He lost his future career over that. over questioning the validity of that framework because they hinge everything on this mathematical covariant relationship with everything. It's like that's fake too. There's no meaning to it. They've completely destroyed any meaning to it by making everything covariant. So really, it's really so that's why it's really important to hone down on that. The motion in the sky has nothing to do with what we're measuring on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, it specifically, the sky shows us that the Earth is not moving. That's what's so funny about it. It's like,
Yep.
So like really looking at the sky and making definitive claims about the Earth is not an ideal approach. But okay, how do you measure something not moving? Well, you take something that measures movement and you try to measure it moving, and then you'll see that it's not moving, right? That's already happened. Like that's already happened, bro. That's what we all experience. That's what all measurement attempts have shown. That's already happened. And then when you really pull it back further than that, you're like, oh, well, the measurement attempts, as you go higher, they change. So like the sky's moving, we see that, we experience that, the measurements show that. When we look further out into the sky, we see, dude, this claim of how we're flying through space and the universe is so big and we're randomly placed there is clearly not true. So I think that that's like the biggest part, right? I think really schooling the globbers, like that's actually it's like we need to really recalibrate, right? Like we need to stay at the cutting edge where we're learning all of this stuff and we're pulling back the layers because we're teaching the globbers about their position, and that's good because we're ironing it out, and that's how we're going to actually figure out what's going on. We're going to figure out the truth, etc. That's how we're going to be able to sit down with any PhD, and they're not going to be ready, right? They have no idea what they're getting into. At the same time, I think we need to also recalibrate in general. It's like, okay, we need to kind of walk people through it. Like, look, here's just cover kind of the basic things. Make sure you understand what we're even talking about. Like, make sure you understand what you're deciding. Like, you believe this, let's make sure you know what this is, like properly, right? It's not mass attracting mass, bro. It's not. And if we kind of all move that way where we're like, well, I think if we focus on motion first, we would change the game. If everyone focuses on motion for the most part, right? Imagine if it became super popular that the Earth actually isn't moving around the sun in a solar system. That is a huge step in the right direction. Do you know how many people are going to quickly become a flat earther? So I think if we all honed in on that, I'll try to combine hone and focus, then it would make a big difference. So that's kind of my look on it, and I think that's one of the biggest truths of all this is like, whoa, wow, it turns out we are special, and this place is special. So yeah, and then also one of my bigger arguments that I'm really excited about this year, and I'm debating someone this week, actually. Let me check it out. Let me see who it is. I'm debating an engineer with a degree in physics focusing on spacecraft systems this weekend on Modern Day Debate.
Nice.
Yeah, so that should be interesting. But I think that one of my bigger arguments is really the electrical current. Right. And that's like it just shows you like, bro, like, except this is the truth, bro. The Earth's not moving. It's in the center of the cosmos, which means order. It's a very ordered cyclical system. It operates just like a giant torus field. And everything within it is electric. Everything is electric. Everything is composed and comprised of electrical components. Everything's electric. Now all of a sudden, and there's this all-encompassing medium that everything operates within and comes from, right? And when you understand that, all of a sudden, you have you're able to think for yourself. All of a sudden, you have like a coherent worldview again. You went from over here where everything has to be broken up into a million pieces and not make sense and go in a million directions and be super convoluted and everything you see is a lie, it's an illusion, you can't believe anything that you actually observe or experience, to, oh wait, everything makes perfect sense. Everything is connected. Everything's electric. Everything is within this background medium. The Earth isn't moving and everything's moving around us. All of a sudden, it brings like order, right? and like absolute truth back to the table. So it's kind of crazy. Like, to me, it's super frustrating that people haven't gotten it. And so that's why I'm talking about recalibrating the approach. So I don't know what you guys think, but I ran down the R value route a lot, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm gonna kind of pivot. So, and obviously everyone do their own thing, but just so you guys know what to expect from me, I think it's going to be the biggest year. I think that's one of the reasons. I think I have some big plans I'm not going to talk about yet, and just know what to expect. Just know that that's where I'm going to be focusing. So,
Well, I have like two thoughts on that. Like with the R value thing, I think the difficulty with that is it, like, people think, when you figure out that you see too far, like just straight up, you see too far, and that there's just no curvature, and you just it's so obvious that trying to like just smack someone over the face with that can be difficult for people that have, a bit of ego or, intellectual ego or whatever. But when you get into the details about motion, you can get those people to have a more interesting discussion, because I think a lot of people actually sense something wrong, smell something up with relativity, right? I think there's a lot of people that would be interested in unwinding all that, where that comes from. And the fact that, like Michelson-Morley needs to be talked about more. It needs to be talked about more with the discussion of relativity more, because people need to really be understanding where this comes from. Where does relativity come from? It literally comes from they couldn't measure motion of the Earth. And so,
exactly.
like, people are, you start talking to people about that, and people already know NASA's full of it. They already know we didn't go to the moon. I mean, a lot of people, people with eyes to see. So they're already, sniffing things out, and then they're going to be like, oh, geocentrism, that doesn't have that flat earther connotation. And then they're going to look under the hood a little bit. They're going to start looking into it, and they're going to get intrigued. And once they start figuring out that, how sensible it is, and they can throw out all this relativism crap and actually adopt, like a real framework. And if they really, start looking into the ether and understanding like the medium, that it's like you said, and you suddenly start looking at this framework that all makes sense. And then you start looking like, man, all these people that know all this stuff, like, they're all flat earthers. And it's like, we're all over here with this big smile on our face. Like, yeah, yeah, you're going to figure it out eventually, buddy.
Yeah, someone said everything moving around us proves that nothing is. Hey, Alan, real fast, bro. Can you talk super chat? Daniel McLaughlin, thank you for the $5 super chat. Can you talk a little more about the guy that lost his PhD? Either one of you guys.
Crothers, Stephen Crothers. Yeah, so he was doing his PhD candidature or whatever at the University of New South Wales in Australia, and to get your PhD there, you have to be sponsored, right? So he got sponsored by his professor or whatever, and he was going to do his thesis on basically doing a mathematical analyzation of Einstein's field equations, right? And the guy, his professor, his sponsor, was like, "Oh, dude, that's super dope! I can't wait! It's so exciting!" Because he had already found some like preliminary stuff that was like pretty damning to the framework, and this guy was like, "Oh, no way, that's super interesting! Like, yeah, definitely do this! Like, pursue this! I got you!" So as he's pursuing this, he finds out that dude doesn't have him, right? So he submits his thesis, and it causes an uproar in the faculty, in the upper faculty or whatever, right? And he basically gets first of all, his professor that's sponsoring him drops him, and then it becomes contingent on this other guy like reviewing the PhD or like reviewing his work to see if he can like continue, or whatever, to even find like another person to sponsor him. And this guy reviews Crothers' work. He in his review of it, he changes Crothers' work. He like in the notes, like how he's like grading it, he changes it and then makes critiques based off of what he changed, and like tells him how wrong he is based off of what he changed to Crothers' work. And then there was a whole thing with that where he took it to an appeals committee for the faculty, and like they never addressed like how insane it was that this guy, denied his the validity of his work based off of changing it. Like, so that didn't go anywhere. And then So they ended up like letting that slide, but they dropped Crothers's, like, nobody would give him a sponsorship, so he couldn't get his PhD. So he ends up taking this issue all the way to the International Relativity
Hey,
Gravitational Committee.
real fast. What's his name?
Yeah.
What's his full name?
Stephen Crothers.
And it's spelled
STEPHEN, and then CROTHERS. Crothers.
okay. Got it. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yep.
He took it to some type of committee. What was the committee?
Yeah. So he took it to the International Relativity Gravitational Committee, right? So I guess there's like a committee of like academics that decide on like the uniform distribution of how they're going to teach relativity and like, the mathematics and how they apply and whatever, right? So they have a committee for this. He takes it to them, right? He takes it to the upper head of it, right? The president of this committee, and he's having a back and forth. You can go to his website, Crothers' website, and look at all these email exchanges, by the way, and like read it. So he basically has a similar experience with this guy where he changes the work and then gives critiques based off of that. And then, dude, it's just nuts, man. He gets nowhere with these guys. They just completely stonewall him. And basically, the end of the conversation, he goes, "Listen, Crothers, you and a lot of other people think that you're smarter than Einstein, and you need to sit the fuck down. You're not smarter than Einstein." And that's basically how he ends it, man. Just shuts the guy down, doesn't address any of Crothers' actual points, which is basically he gets into the covariant relationship. So like he breaks down the specifics of how they have to conserve, like how the conservation laws have to be satisfied mathematically if energy and mass and all that is equivalent, right? So if like E equals mc squared is true, like they have to come up with a new way to satisfy conservation laws because that changes rest mass and relative mass, right? So anyway, they have to satisfy conservation laws, otherwise no one's going to take their framework seriously. And Einstein couldn't do it without violating the mathematical structure of what do you call it, of absolute differential calculus, like how he was trying to use it, like the whole framework of it. He couldn't satisfy the conservation law, so he uses what they call like a pseudo tensor to satisfy the conservation laws. And this mathematical like faux pas haunted him for 40 years. He tried to correct it, never could, and it's not fixable. Like since then, several other people have tried to fix it, and they can't. Like they'll derive other tensors to satisfy them, but it's the same issue. And Crothers points that out in all their tensors. Like they're all the same. It's just mathematical gobbledygook. And you can find, Russians pointed this out as well. The guy that created absolute differential calculus, Levi Savita, and his assistant, I forget that guy's name. But those guys were like talking to Einstein about this. Like everyone knew about this back in the day, but this is just like a lesser known thing now. And Crothers just kind of stumbled upon that just by, adhering to the mathematical framework honestly, and then got body bagged, academically over it.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, shout out to Crothers, bro.
Yeah, I dropped his website. I guess it's Beyond Mainstream Science. I think that's his. Or maybe that website has him on it, probably. But I dropped that page of him. If you want to check it out, that's pretty crazy, man. Like, what do people think about this? Like, it's so wild. I don't know. I guess
they just hand wave dismiss him, bro. So this is the same guy. He did a review of gravitational waves and LIGO, right? And he basically pointed out that gravitational waves are just kind of like some ad hoc, mathematical derivation that they use, and they use a preferred coordinate system of a vacuum so that they could make the propagation rate match the speed of light. But if you do a coordinate system transformation where the permittivity and permeability isn't a vacuum, right, the propagation rate changes. So it's not an invariant transformation. So it's not like in the same way that they regard like the speed of light, where it has to be invariant under transformation to maintain covariance. They don't. That doesn't apply to what they call gravitational waves. So it literally doesn't even fall within their like religious framework. Like it's not canonized essentially by not being covariant. And so he points this out, right? And I brought this, and this is like this coordinate system transformation stuff is like, like I can't do it personally, but this is like something that a relativist could, should be able to do, right? Especially in the academic framework. So I showed this to a guy who is a math professor, and he goes, yeah, I don't know, man. Like this is way above my pay grade. This stuff, that guy might be a genius, but like I don't know. And it's like, dude, it's literally just a basic coordinate system transformation. Like, you should definitely recognize what's happening and like know the implications here. And like he literally pretended to not like to I don't know. And then like now figuring all this out and going back and understanding what Crothers is pointing out, it's like, bro, it's a literal coordinate system transformation. Your belief system's based on coordinate system transformations. Suddenly you can't do them when it's in question. Like
Yeah.
when the mathematics doesn't work out for you. It's like it's very revealing that they actually don't care about covariance. Right?
Yeah, they can
Yeah,
they can definitely do them any other time they need to.
When,
yeah, any
when a
other dude, any
relativist-
other time.
when a relativist hits that point where they have to realize that covariance is not substantiated like that, that's when they have to, like, people hit that point and then they have to make a decision. Am I gonna, keep believing relativity? Am I gonna become a pure relativist? Because I can't be a covariant relativist anymore. I can't have this this fantasy in my head that the math's going to make it make sense, because I've now been confronted face to face with the fact that the math doesn't make sense. So it's crazy when you think about it, because when those people hit that point, it's a true leap of faith that they take. They're basically giving their regard for truth over to the institutions.
Yeah, Craig. Let me let me read this real fast. Rockfin, Hubble's Horde. Thanks, Austin. Happy New Year. Looking forward to some intellectual honesty being forced on anti-flat earthers in 2024. Sometimes I wonder if they mistake mental gymnastics with intellectualism. Yeah, I think actually they do. I think they think how effectively they can kind of perform mental gymnastics is intellectual. I think that is actually a thing. But thank you for the $10 tip. RP, thank you for the $5 tip. Austin, thank you for all you do. Keep up the great work. Will do. Thank you for the support. John Keeley, thank you for the $5 tip on Rockfin. And Leland Wilt, your explanations are so clean. Thank you, Austin. No problem. Thank you. And thank you guys for supporting on Rockfin. Much love. All right. We're caught up. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy because it seems like the new norm is that the Globbers will talk reckless throughout the week. They will defend the pseudoscience daily, right? That they will come into the Discord chat. They will come into the YouTube chat. They will come into even the Rockfin chat, and they will talk reckless. But whenever given a complete platform, told that you'll be respectfully brought on, you'll be allowed to make your points, that you'll be prioritized if you have an opposing view, right? Just come on and kind of defend this idea that you ridicule people for not believing, and we get crickets, when the rubber meets the road. But I don't know if we have to integrate some type of prize show, like a prize money to get them on. Do you guys have any suggestions how to get the ballers to actually engage?
Dude, we could do like a Price is Right, come on down or whatever. I feel like we could do it. Get that energy going.
Yeah, for real. Like if it's a decent, or there's a decent amount of money somehow that they can actually win. I mean, we got to give them a chance. So we can't say like actually provide verifiable proof the Earth's a spinning globe.
The unwinnable game.
Yeah, but like even if it's like participation, genuine. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. If
Dude,
anyone,
we could enter them in a raffle, bro.
oh yeah, maybe if you come on and you respectfully interact and engage and stay on topic and actually address it, then you get thrown to that week's raffle, and then you win prize money. If you guys at home think that's a good idea, let me know. I'll actually open up a poll on YouTube, and then you guys can let me know. What we'll do is we'll just kind of, we'll put some money aside for the Globbers, and maybe that'll get them in here. So I think everyone would be down for that. I mean, something's got to give, right?
I mean, dude, it gets hard out there when it's an untenable position,
You'd think it'd be easy to at least, they can just spin up a decoy Discord account. They could even maybe hide their voice a little bit, come in and just, You're not even he putting your face and your name on it. You just come in and maybe just explore the topic a little bit. Crazy.
Some people said no real quick. That's funny. Don't give the Globbers any prize money.
It was me.
I think that, like, I do think that this show and that this type of approach and that the interaction with people on the other side is important, right? Like, I think that engaging conversation where opposing views are discussed is like the backbone of society. And that's why I think that anyone going against free speech doesn't even understand. Like, let me end this poll. I didn't phrase it well. I should call it a raffle. But yeah, so that's why I want to keep this going and figure out how to prioritize participation. But yeah, we'll see. You know, I think that kind of what's really happening in society that's gonna like actually threaten our ability to like survive ultimately and be free is this notion that when people disagree with you, shut them down. And that's why I don't want to censor anyone on this channel unless they are just literally spamming crazy inappropriate things. And even at that point, I want to be super lenient because I do want to keep a clean environment for people to come with good faith and stuff like that. But I think that we have to really embrace the discussions with people that disagree. I think that's one thing that certain flat earthers haven't done a good job of, right? And like, it's needed. Unless I just have to embrace the role of Globber Austin every week. Should I do that? You guys want me to play the role of the Globber? No, because Alan's going to smoke me.
Dude, now that you've revealed the Newtonian, failure, it's like there's really nothing to fall back on with the interferometry. That's why it's the most powerful argument that we have. Like, we have the most precise instrumentation that shows that we're stationary, non-rotating, and it's like we should definitely weaponize it, man. Like, you see how effective it is. It clears rooms out. It just like there's no rebuttal. The whole framework's bankrupt. Like, it philosophically invokes absolute space to even do the thought experiment, to put the pen to paper, to do the mathematics, to pretend. It's literally Dungeons and Dragons role plays.
And that's why they all get the canon all mixed up, because the dungeon master didn't give them a good enough of a layout.
Yeah.
They're all just making it up as they go.
Someone said, y'all don't get it. Very little will be paid out because they have zero answers. No, that's not the idea. The idea is if they come on and they actually try to answer the questions and they participate like a civilized human or person. Well, both those words suck, but man, then they get entered in a raffle. We'll randomize at the end of every show. Whoever joined will get thrown in the raffle, and then there's one prize, or maybe you could break it up into 3. But I think we'll start with 1, and then that person just gets sent, Cash App. I mean, Venmo censored me, but maybe Cash App, PayPal, whatever. So yeah, I think it's maybe a good idea. Here, I'll be the baller in just a second, and then we'll wrap it up. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up real quick? Or any other topics or anything like that? I have to start the show earlier in the future, man.
If you witnessed what Kosho was going at it with Alan about, that was a pretty good back and forth that he stuck to. And, it's just like, do you want to try to revisit that conversation in the baller versus flat at all?
Sounds miserable.
Did you say put everyone to sleep, dog? Like,
yeah.
In the morning, everyone's hanging in there, bro.
Yeah, you're talking group velocity. Like, I heard some of it in the background. I'm like, bro.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
Start
want to
running into the
less
wall.
productive convo?
Well, maybe we could get somewhere is what I'm saying. We wouldn't just go like the point at which the circle, is pointed out that there was a contradiction not being acknowledged.
Yeah. Yo, I got you. Yo, Witsit, let's run it real quick. Yo, the speed of light is plus or minus v.
No, actually, it's not. It's just c. There is no plus v.
It's measurable though, and otherwise there wouldn't be a fringe pattern to produce it.
No, that's we can actually just transform our way out of that. You don't understand relativity.
Well, the transformation invokes a temporary invocation of absolute space to preserve the distance to even do the transformation so that you can maintain the constancy of C.
Yeah, but relativity is a crazy thing, man. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to pop into absolute space and time because it's pretty much everything.
Oh, well, that's a fair point, and I concede, yield my position, and
I'm a globber.
I'm now subservient to your equations. Subservient to your equations.
Let's go, baby. Globulars victory. Who else wants the smoke?
We're not seeing you on the screen, Witsit, if that's what you. I don't know if you.
I'll show you. I'll show you. Yeah, I'm showing them the smaller version, but I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Too. Let's see. All right, yeah. You guys tell me, does that work? You guys can see me there?
Yep. Perfect. Yep. So,
if the Earth's stationary, does the universe have a floor?
Oh, the Earth's not stationary, dude. It's tilted on a 23.4 degree axis, and it actually wobbles about 4 different ways, and it's spinning. It's a giant globe that slowly rotates, and it orbits the Earth. That's why it looks like it's stationary. You just can't tell.
So it's hovering in space.
It's flying through space in many different vectors.
So
how is it wobbling?
There's a physical object in space with no floor.
Yeah, it's a globe. Yeah. What'd you say in your perspective?
How is it wobbling at 4 different rates at the same time?
Well, hang on. If the Earth's stationary, what's it fixed to? What's it fixed to?
Dude, we're not arguing if the Earth is stationary right now. I'm a glober.
No. If the Earth's stationary, what's it fixed to?
It looks like it maybe has some foundations, man.
So does the universe have a floor?
I don't think so.
Okay. So it has an up and a down and a left and a right.
Okay.
A forward and a back.
Yeah, I think that a creator put it where it's at, in a little bubble, and it's surrounded by water. And what I want to know is if the Earth is flying up through space, then is the sun and moon and stars also moving away from us?
If they're all moving in unison, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so they have to be moving away from us.
Well, it seems that they're in bands. So we're standing on the surface of the Earth. The stars are in another band, right? The planets are in another band, like a density.
They have to all be moving. They all have to be moving, though. Here's my question. If the Earth is moving up, then why can we not measure it with linear interferometry?
I'm sure you could.
We can't. We provably cannot.
Well, it's the only vector that wasn't
We get the
accounted for.
opposite, in fact, with Pound Repka and Pound Snyder. And and you could argue like, inconclusive or whatever, because both models make the same prediction, but they never repeated it with an atomic clock that would show that the propagation was actually faster going down. Like there's actually a downward bias for EM propagation as well.
Yeah. So why does EM go down faster than it goes up?
Well, that's where your claims about there being electric currents, and I mean that would fall in line with that if there was a downward bias.
So we need to invoke a downward electric bias, and we need to invoke the fact that things fall at different rates, right? Because if the Earth is going up, well, it's supposedly going up constant, right? So like if the object is in one location falling at different rates at different times, and then 100 miles away it's falling at a different rate, and we know it's not just the Earth moving up, so now we have to invoke the downward electric current. And this is why I don't understand why people, it's like a cult, because I point out, okay, so we do need to invoke a downward electric bias to explain the fluctuation and how things change. So then let's apply that to your first argument where you claim that there's no displacement and you need uniform acceleration. How can you turn around and doublespeak and acknowledge that there isn't uniformity and that it does change and that there is a downward force? Because That doesn't make sense. You can't have both of them, right? So like if you say there must be uniform acceleration if it's going down, but then I say, no, look, it's provably not uniform. It changes at the same location and different locations with the same object over time. It provably changes. Then you're saying, oh, well, then no, it's not uniform. Now let's go back to the dropping the bottle with liquid and gas. Okay, it can't always be doing the same thing because it falls at different rates, right? So like, what is that? How does that work? Then we would see a displacement based on that, right? We would see a displacement based on the downward electric pressure and how it changes. And that's why no one's ever actually measured that there's no displacement. It's just a claim. It's just that the displacement would be very small based on the slight fluctuation, because if you're matching around how fast things fall by falling, right, you're not going to see it. And you really wouldn't even see a displacement for any like serious displacement because you're just matching the rate at which things fall. So that's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. I want to know, how can you claim it's a uniform acceleration? Because I know the claim is that it's not, but that if it's accelerating, it has to be uniform. That's the claim. I'm saying, if that's true, then how do you account for the fact that there is a variation in how fast things fall, which is specifically not uniform?
Yeah, they seem to be the two main points with it. That for it, in order to it to work, say an upward trajectory, it's always got to be accelerating. So the ballers will say that's untenable. And then they're also bringing up that there are different areas on the surface of wherever we are that, things do fall at different rates. I don't have a clear, definitive answer on that for you, man. I'm sorry.
It's okay, but I'm saying that there is no answer, right? The proof is, the fact of the matter is that linear interferometry does not measure the Earth moving up. And it would. We've proven that interferometers can measure linear motion with insane precision. It doesn't measure the Earth moving up, right? We've proven that things fall at different rates at the same location. So actually, different objects fall at different rates. We've proven that the same object will fall at different rates at the same place at different times. And we've proven that objects fall at different rates in different locations on the Earth. So all of these, we've proven that there's a downward electric current on the Earth that causes electric bias. We've proven even a Van de Graaff generator can manipulate and change this vector. We've proven that in a vacuum chamber that there's still electric permittivity, and even in a Faraday cage, there's still electric permittivity, that there's no way to get rid of it. We know for a fact that everything's intrinsically electrostatic within this electric field. We've measured that it's there, right? So like, these are all factual things. Now, there's another claim on the table that says, well, actually, all those things are true, but the Earth is accelerating up. You just can't actually measure it. So it's like, that's just like a globe earther. That tells me the Earth's actually tilted, wobbling, spinning, revolving. You just can't measure it. You just can't know for sure. The Earth's orbiting around the sun. You just can't measure it. And I say, what's your proof that the Earth's orbiting the sun? And they say, well, look at the sun changing position in the sky. And then they affirm the consequent and reify the claim that it's orbiting. The people that claim the Earth's moving up, I say, can you directly measure this supposed motion? Can you show me something that measures it? No, we can't measure it. What's your proof of it? Well, if we assume it's happening, look at things fall. Here's how I would explain it if the Earth was moving up. It's just an affirming the consequent, reification fallacy. You have to prove it's moving. The easiest debunk of this is that linear interferometry is incredibly precise, certainly precise enough to try to explain 9.8 meters per second squared, which is, of course, not constant, not uniform, and it doesn't measure it, bro. You know, I will say this. I don't want to talk about just this. I know that I can tell you have good faith here or whatever. And you obviously frequent Dell's channel. Tell Dell, just like I told him, I'm happy to set up a proper discussion, right, where we have our time, then we have open discussion, there's some type of moderation, and we can have a thorough 2-hour conversation about this, because everyone wants to hear all the details, and I'm happy to do that, right? And
I don't know what your schedule's like, but I'd really appreciate that, because I think your mind, what you're aware of, your ability to relay information, explain it, is getting exceptional. So if you could put some time aside, and because we're going to realize we're not retards and morons, So if the discussion can be honest and not about ad hominem and trying to outdo each other and just trying to further our understanding, that's what 24 should be about, right?
I'm all for it, bro. I don't think the people that currently think this are stupid. I think that they show like, oh, why is there not a measurable force detected when things fall, right? I understand that they are smart enough to understand the concept. It's effectively a slightly different equivalence principle, right? I also know that sometimes people fall into the trap of, I didn't understand that at first, and then when it clicks with them, they just kind of believe it to be true because once they overcame not understanding it and then it made sense, they're like, oh, like they kind of get caught up in understanding it. I strongly disagree with the claim. I don't judge people or whatever. I think that the behavior of that side of the conversation is really the one that's pretty toxic typically, but yes, I'm happy to do it. You can relay it to him in the chat. I'll reach out to him personally. I have a very busy schedule that almost every hour of my day is like specifically laid out at this point, and I have very busy times. But I will happily set up a conversation with him because a lot of people have asked for it, and no hard feelings about the previous conversation. I do want to create a globber section real fast. But what I was before we end, but I want to be the globber. But I want to say what's funny, bro, is like you guys are just gonna start using my questions against me. You know I can't answer my own question. That's why they're my questions. Like the new perspective of me said, how do you explain the four wobbles? I don't know.
I was almost kidding. Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like good question. Good question. Well, it just happens, bro. It happens. And I can't replicate it because relativity, bro. What else you got? Oh, don't bring up the plane. Don't bring up the plane. It doesn't matter. We don't have to do this. You guys don't want the smoke. I get it. I wouldn't want the smoke either. All right. Well, you guys saw it here first. They're scared of Baller Austin. They don't want the smoke. Let's see what the poll.
So how do planes land on a spinning ball if they're treating it as stationary?
Because, dude, the Earth's really big, man. Okay, so it's so big that you can't really tell that it's moving. Yeah.
I see. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Austin, actually, I got a question for you and Alan at the same time. I still can't figure this out. How the Lagrange point works with the three-body problem. It's something I'm trying to work out, and I just can't figure it out.
Dude, so they create mathematically, right? They have this point where it's between both sections of where the strength of the fields die down or whatever, right? And it's just orbiting between nothing. It's insane. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't know the answer to that.
And they name it a Lagrange point after your boy Lagrange, who came up with that excellent way to derive how much energy in a system, and how much efficient movement you can get out or whatever it was, that whole thing, a real applicable use. And they named the Lagrange point some fake abstract mathematical barycenter point where they can create a fictional orbit based on different gravitational potentials of bodies that have no way to produce a force to detect motion between them. It's crazy.
Yeah, I've been trying to just systematically conceive it. It boggles my mind as to why people even think it's possible in regards to Newtonian or Einsteinian gravity. But hey, Austin, while you're here, as I promised, and I already made the promise fulfilled to Jaren, one of your streams that you want to give away to, passes to the next summit. I will pay for it and give you a nice tip as well. So whenever your next stream is going to be, just let me know and I will go ahead and donate those to you straight through Cash App. I'm not really sure what your Cash App is, but I will do that for you.
Cool, bro. That's awesome, man. Shout out to you, bro.
Yeah, and I did it for Jaren on Christmas Eve, and I promised to both of you at the last summit.
Yeah, very cool, man. I'd love to do it. Maybe we can do it on one of these shows. My Cash App's $, WitsitGetsIt, but we'll work it out in advance. What's up?
Yeah, whatever you want. I'm just saying, I didn't think this was the appropriate appropriate stream to do that on. But
No, we'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll. I mean, you don't want me to give it to globbers. I'll invite some toxic globbers. You want to bring them? Joking, joking. No, dude, it's a sacred place of truthers, man. Let me see I'll tell you what ChatGPT said about your question. In the three-body problem, Lagrange points are stable points where the gravitational forces of three bodies balance, following an object placed there to remain relatively stationary with respect to the three-body system. These points do work and make sense with the context of the three-body problem, providing useful locations for spacecraft and celestial objects. It's important to note that Lagrange points are theoretically stable. They are not perfectly stable in practice. Small perturbations, such as gravitational influences from other celestial bodies or non-uniformities in the mass distribution of the three-body system, can cause objects at these points to drift over time. However, they are still useful for various space missions and observations where a stable position relative to the multiple celestial bodies is desired. You notice it didn't actually answer the question. So,
yeah, like source, nasa.gov.
Yeah, like it can't answer the question, like specifically, because they can't even answer the three-body problem at all. They literally just all repeat the script that, well, it's just a mathematical problem. It can work if you do them individually. Like, okay, well, we're not talking about that. So, yeah, I don't know. I've never really thought about that. But it's all just mathematical reification anyway. So. The clown word. All right, I think we're caught up on the fan funding. No, we're not. Daniel McLaughlin, $5 super chat. Thank you, bro. Where did the idea of going to space come from? Like the idea that you could get into a ship and leave Earth. Who popularized this? That's a good question, bro. I mean, I know Jules Verne wrote about going to the moon in the 1800s. Does anyone know like the earliest mention of such an idea? That's ridiculous.
No, not off the top of my head. I know they started like who was that guy that was there was like science fiction authors that they were promoting early on. You know, this was like, pre-moon landing.
Wasn't it the earliest movie about it, like where they went to the moon? That French movie?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, maybe so. I guess that the first mention of it probably wouldn't be a movie, though. It says here, The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells was published in 1898. That was the first time the idea of going to space was proposed.
Wow.
It says, however, the concept of space travel as we understand it today, involving humans traveling to other celestial bodies, gained significant attention with the publication of Jules Verne's novel From Earth to the Moon in 1865. So, yeah, so it's saying, of course, ChatGPT take it with a grain of salt, but it is actually saying Jules Verne. And that's obviously sooner than 1898. So, yeah, that's the earliest one I know. Is Jules Verne basically predicted the moon landing perfectly, like it would be shot off from Florida, how it would wrap around the moon, all this stuff, because they just take science fiction books and then claim it really happened, right? Like that's literally what they do. Like meteorites were proposed in science fiction before they were ever supposedly discovered. Same with the moon landing. Got Elon supposedly found the first civilization on Mars in the future, and that's what the book about Mars says from Wernher von Braun. So the Titanic, right? That's a science fiction book. So, or just a fictional book. So, yeah, that's my understanding. You knew about Jules Verne? Have you guys ever seen that dude's freaking grave? It's
is that the one?
Creepy.
No, I haven't.
Okay, I'm gonna show it. It's super creepy, bro. So change windows. I mean, this dude was like very like into like esoteric Luciferianism, right? But here I'm showing the Discord. You see that?
That's really creepy.
Yeah, bro.
What the heck?
What?
What is he doing? Here, I'll show.
I think he's rising from the dead.
Showing the stream. Yeah, it's like he's reaching out of the grave. Like what is he doing? Like he chose for that to be his grave.
Yeah,
He's like, all right, guys, hear me out when I die.
I'm gonna need to get out of there.
Like CERN.
It's creepy,
It's
bro.
esoteric to that.
And then look, Jules Verne moon. Earth to the moon. So
There's
there's
Le Voyage des la Lune. That was 1902. I think that's what Eden's referring to.
okay. From
Oh,
Earth to the moon.
ChatGPT said that in the 2nd century AD, there was a satirical novel called True History by Lucian of Samosata, a Syrian satirist, describing a journey to the moon and the encounters with alien life forms and interplanetary battles between the inhabitants of the moon and the sun. But it's just a parody. 2nd century.
75 hours. Wow.
Yeah, and it says that he predicted a direct route in 97 hours. It is really crazy, right? Like, they shoot from Florida, the way they wrap around the moon, everything, like Stones Hill and Tampa Town, Florida.
Wow.
It's really wild. Yeah, it's really wild. Oh, it was the inspiration for the 1875 opera Le Voyage dans la Lune.
Dude, the first space opera? That sounds dope.
During their return journey from the moon, the crew of Apollo 11 made reference to Jules Verne's book during a TV broadcast on July 23rd. Like, they literally mentioned it. What a joke. The mission's commander, astronaut Neil Armstrong, said, 100 years ago, Jules Verne wrote a book about a voyage to the moon. His spaceship, Columbia, took off from Florida and landed in the Pacific Ocean after completing a trip to the moon. It seems appropriate to us to share with you some of the reflections of the crew as the modern-day Columbia completes its rendezvous with the planet Earth in the same Pacific Ocean tomorrow.
That's wild.
Oh, man, I didn't know they point-blank brought it up.
Like, and when it all happens, this is what you'll read.
Wow, bro. Yeah, that's crazy. Well, we live in a clown world. So. All right, I think I'm going to wrap it up. I said I wouldn't go till 2, and sure enough, look what we did. So, okay, let me actually make sure I'm over here. So we'll just kind of recap real fast. We'll do a recap, and then we'll get out of here. If anyone has any closing remarks, just kind of think of them right now, and then I'll open it up to the panel before we get out of here. Hopefully this will work. I don't know. It will not, so let me turn the PowerPoint back on. Okay. So basically, the recap, the question of the day today is, I don't necessarily want to recap all the questions. I will really fast. So, again, just a reminder, the questions, none of them have been sufficiently answered yet. This is going on the 5th week of the new format. Can you provide any exclusive evidence that the Earth orbits around the sun? The answer is a resounding no. And in fact, the geocentric stationary Earth is the only position that you can use to do the vast majority of even theoretics. And that's what all observation shows us. Can you provide any exclusive evidence that the sun is 93 million miles away? They only have the transit of Venus and the radar bounds buried. Both of them, they're both stupid and pseudoscientific. Can high-frequency radio waves and microwaves propagate through the curvature of the Earth? The answer is, of course, no. And that long-distance, high-frequency line-of-sight transmissions refute the geometric claim of the globe. Can you have equidistant lines in a vertical electric field with two Gaussian surfaces without them? The answer is, of course, no. And this actually shows you that there's a downward electric current of 10 microamps per square meter, giving you a very nearly constant downward electric pressure of like 1800 amps at any given time. So it completely refutes the idea that the fact that there's a tendency to go down or a downward bias somehow proves gravity. It absolutely does not. And so it rips away gravity, which is actually the prerequisite to even claiming the Earth's a sphere, since it's basically their God, and they have a big G and little g gravity God that made everything as omnipresent and literally was required to make up their whole religion. And you have the perpendicular surfaces. They're perpendicular to the vertical field, meaning that they have to be horizontal. You cannot have a uniform vertical electric field with equipotential surfaces on a sphere, because if you placed a conductive sphere in an electric field, what would happen is the charges would distribute internally and then radially outward, which would give you concentric circles to even get your theoretical equipotential surfaces, which would then result in no uniformity because of the intrinsic geometry of a sphere. Of course, you actually need a physical surface to replicate this in reality, so it debunks the claim that we're in an open system inside of a vacuum. There must be some type of physical surface acting as the second Gaussian surface. They will actually claim that it's the ionosphere, but the ionosphere fluctuates, which means that the field will fluctuate, because they claim that not all radio waves bounce at the same height in the ionosphere. Sometimes it's 37 miles, sometimes it doesn't bounce back down until 53 miles. So where it would be allegedly acting as some type of surface would constantly change, thus changing the field. So the actual fluctuation shows that it cannot be true. It also shows that it had to be different on different places of the Earth, which is also provably not true. Therefore, you can't even claim that. Of course, you couldn't claim it anyway, because that's a gas, not a physical solid material surface. So all that to say, it gets rid of the open system claim, gets rid of the gravity claim, and of course it debunks the sphere claim, the geometry. It's a 3-in-1 death blow to the globe model, and it has completely gone unrebutted. And then the question for tonight's was, can Newtonian gravity and the claim of Earth's orbit both be true simultaneously? We covered that it definitely cannot. And that Newton's first law of motion, also known as the law of inertia, which means unchanging, states that an object will remain at rest or keep moving in a straight line at a constant speed unless acted upon by a force. Of course, we covered that this is a circle, and that, believe it or not, that this is not a straight line, which means it's a curved path. It's circular motion. We also wanted to make sure everyone understood the two first principles of logic, literally the fundamentals, and that's the law of non-contradiction. Contradictory claims cannot be true at the same time. The law of the excluded middle, meaning something either is or is not. It cannot be in the middle, and contradictory claims cannot be true at the same time. And then we pointed out that Newton and Einstein have fundamentally contradictory and antithetical claims. An object will continue a straight path unless an external force acts upon it. Einstein said an object can go on a curved path without a force acting upon it. And that, in fact, that's what the Earth is doing. It's going straight, not curving, even though it is curving. Well, no, it's going straight and it's curving, but just from the Earth, it's going straight. So then he said, of course, it doesn't need a force, which is convenient. So to claim that, he had to say gravity is not a force. Gravity is supposedly the claimed cause of the Earth moving around the sun, and then the Earth is supposedly going in a straight path, not a curved path as it goes around the sun. Yes, I said that. If the Earth's going in a straight path around the sun, trust me, I get it, it's retarded, then that means that you have to say gravity is not a force, and of course that's what he did. There must be an ether in Newtonian gravity because you have instantaneous action at a distance with no time variable requiring an intermediary medium with mutual contact. And of course, Newton specifically said that whether or not this medium is material or immaterial, I've left to the consideration of my readers, but the idea that innate brute matter would act on other matter through the vastness of a vacuum without some type of medium in between is, to me, so great an absurdity that no man with the competent faculty of thinking in philosophical matters could ever fall into it. He said that there was an ether, then went on to theorizing it in detail. Einstein specifically had to get rid of the ether based on Michelson-Morley, which is where Einstein came from, probably propped up to even propose relativity in the first place. We also covered that from his own words. And he also said at the address at Kyoto University that he came across the strange results of Michelson-Morley, and that was the first path that led him to special relativity. So Newton said space is absolute and fixed. Einstein said that it's not absolute and fixed. And so just to cover them back over really fast, Newton says that the object will continue in a straight path without an outside force acting upon it. And so there's a force called gravity acting on the Earth to pull it around the sun in a circular orbit. Einstein said that an object can go in a curved path without a force acting upon it, and that the Earth's actually going straight in the reference frame of the Earth, and that it's only curving from a different reference frame because it's free falling through the geodesic of curved space-time. Newton said there must exist an ether. Einstein said there is no ether. Newton said space is absolute and fixed. Einstein said space is not absolute and fixed. Newton said gravity is a force, and Einstein said gravity is not a force, which means they cannot both be true. They are fundamentally different. They make opposite claims. Contradictory claims cannot be true at the same time. So there we go. We loop back down to the question, can Newtonian gravity and the claim of Earth's orbit both be true simultaneously? The answer is no, because Michelson-Morley would have detected the Earth's orbit if there was an external force called gravity in innate and intrinsic within all matter, causing the Earth to move around the sun, because there would be an actual force acting on the Earth, actively causing circular motion and interferometry. Everyone admits can detect circular motion. Side note, it can also detect linear motion. Hate to break it to you. And so we had to get rid of Newtonian gravity to even claim the Earth is orbiting the sun. We had to also change the definition of orbit from rotation to quote unquote revolution and claim that with the curvature of space-time, it's free falling in a straight path. The reason that you can't detect the Earth's orbit with interferometry, according to your paradigm, if you believe in this mainstream model, is that the Earth's actually going straight. It's not curving. It's not going in circular motion, since it's not rotating in the traditional sense of what it actually means, that the interferometer could not detect it. Of course, also that space and time have physical properties, and that's all that's there. And even though it has no substantive quality, it somehow has physical properties, and it being endowed with physical properties is a requirement of the bending and the warping and something of which to measure against. So anyway, there's a lot of information here, but basically the claim is that time freaking, expands and dilates and slows down, and that matter contracts in the direction of motion, and that the apparatus contracted just a sufficient amount to compensate for the missing time difference in the Michelson-Morley that would be there if the Earth was orbiting. And long story short, what it comes down to, School and Glober's 24, episode 24, is if you believe the Earth is orbiting around the sun, you cannot believe that Newtonian gravity is true. Einstein came in, waved his little grabbler pedophile wand, and he said, you'll never be able to prove the Earth is moving from the Earth in any way. It's always going to look like it's stationary. There's no way to detect it. All odds are against you, and somehow the universe has decided to conspire against you to deceive you into believing that the Earth is special and in the center and in the middle and not moving, because it's actually not at rest. It's moving all these multiple vectors. You just can never tell. And so if you do believe that the Earth is in fact a spinning, tilted, wobbling cartoon ball in a vacuum flying around the sun, you must believe in something akin to Einsteinian gravity. You cannot believe in Newtonian gravity. All right. So cool stuff. Let me come back over to the Discord real quickly. All right, cool. All right. Anyone have anything they want to throw in before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to say, well said, great presentation, great summary on the chain of events, and this is the end result of, studying interferometry, It turned out to be the exact opposite of proof of what they've been telling us the whole time. It's like not only does it not prove what they say, it actually contradicts it to an insane degree and like proves our position, right? So we should definitely start learning more about it and, stick with it. And so a little self-promotion. Wanted to say, check us out on Tuesday for Ether Cosmology, where we'll be going over, the motion of Earth, the ether, all this stuff, and how it relates to interferometry in depth. Toby and I will be going over that every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And also Flat Earth Friday. Check us out at 9 p.m. Shout out to Proud and Sacred, who host that every week. We'll be there, arguing the same stuff and presenting the same information to people. So you can watch that at 9 on Friday.
Awesome. Yeah, bro. Flat Earth Fridays is awesome. Go check them out. I really like their vibe. Very informative, cool environment. So go support them over on X. Flat Earth Fridays, level heads. And go support my boy Alan, Space Audits on YouTube. Go sub if you haven't subbed. I don't know what you're doing. All right. Anyone else want to say something before we get out of here?
No, man, you summed it up quite well tonight. Like I said, they're never going to show up. The only time they're ever going to show up is if we do a solar system dynamics night where they can come tell us what we learned in elementary school. But yeah, good stuff.
And check out Ether Cosmology from my boy Toby. They ladle gravy. He also has Ether Cosmology pages on the various social media platforms, so make sure to check that out and show them some love. All right. Anyone else got something they want to throw in before we get out of here? 3, 2. Okay. And what I will do to close this out is I will be the baller Austin one more time, and I will point out this is what your position actually is. So yeah, we know that the Earth is a tilted, wobbling, spinning cartoon ball, and we've learned a lot about gravity, mainly that it's no longer a force, it's the effect of the bending and warping of space-time, even though that actually doesn't work on the quantum or cosmological scale, or even completely with the perihelion shift of Mercury, and in fact, it doesn't even fully work on the Earth. But that's how science works, and we're still learning as we go. We know that gravity is drastically incomplete best-case scenario. It would require dark matter, dark energy, something that hasn't been detected and has actually been falsified when assumed, but that's how it works. We're still learning, and just because we don't know everything doesn't mean that it's not true. It's so painful to even say stupid illogical stuff like this, but this is your Stillman. So, and we discovered with Michelson-Morley that there's not an ether, and that the Earth is actually not moving in a circular path when it comes to the reference frame of the Earth. In order to explain Michelson-Morley not detecting the Earth's orbit, we had to invoke Einsteinian mechanics, and that there was a bending and warping of space-time, and that Earth was free falling in a geodesic path, so it's actually going straight and curving, but from the Earth it's just going straight, so the interferometry only detects circular motion, therefore it wasn't able to detect linear motion. Newtonian gravity has been debunked and refuted. It's archaic, it's old news, not that the sun was in the center of the entire universe anyway. We had to move on past that, because we either had to accept that there was an ether and the Earth was not moving, or we had to throw out the ether and claim the Earth is moving and then change all of physics, mainly by replacing Newtonian mechanics and Newtonian gravity. So we know that Newtonian gravity is wrong, and we're not going to talk about it anymore because it's an rudimentary misrepresentation of our actual position. All right, that's your Stillman. Cool. Thank you guys. It was kind of tongue in cheek, honestly. Let's be honest, it was pretty backhanded, but thank you guys for kicking it. I appreciate all the support. Let me double check. We did get something else on Rockman. I don't want to miss you guys, so let me call you guys out. Luke Quay. I'm Luke from Melbourne, Australia. I've offered this troll money to debate you. How much would you do it for, and what would be reasonable to offer to him or her? I'll check it out. I don't really know. It doesn't sound particularly interesting. I've kind of decided that I'm not going to debate trolls, and that I'm only going to debate people with good faith, and that I'm only going to debate people typically with credentials. I even told Modern Day Debate that, unless it's on this show, but we'll see how it goes. I don't know, but I'll try to check it out. Thank you for the $5 tip. And this tip is for all your work. I've got some beautiful mates who have really enjoyed listening to you, and you've helped open their minds to want to explore FE. P.S. What about Owen Benjamin mentioned you yesterday? What about what Owen Benjamin mentioned yesterday? The stars moving in different directions, that would mess with the FE sky clock model. He's just now talking about the southern stars, I guess. I don't know. I haven't heard him or what he said, but that's of course incorrect. And thank you for the $10 tip. If anyone does know where that's at, someone wants to send me a clip or something, I'll check it out. Otherwise, I'm like way too busy. I'm not supposed to be awake right now. Glinda, thank you for the $10 tip on Rockfin. So thank you guys for the support on Rockfin. Greatly appreciated. Shout out to everyone over on Rumble for sticking with us. I appreciate you guys. If you're not subbed on those two places, I would greatly appreciate it, because we do have the zombie stream coming. I think it's going to be ready by tomorrow. I just have so much other stuff going on. I didn't want to rush it. But the zombie stream is going to have to predominantly be on Rumble and Rockfin. So go ahead and go over there. It's WitsitGetsIt on Rumble and Rockfin, rockfin.com/WitsitGetsIt. And Rockfin's the one that really helps support us with free speech. So I would appreciate you guys going over there. You don't want to miss the zombie stream when it comes. So yeah, cool. And I think we're caught up on the YouTube. Let me make sure that we're caught up on the super chats. We are. Okay, cool. Thank you guys for kicking it. Also, of course, shout out to, one came in last minute. Shout out to Geo at Earth Awakenings on Discord. Flat Earth Dude, $20 super chat. And that's exactly what I was about to say. So yeah, shout out to Geo. I was going to say thank the Earth Awakenings for letting us host this show here. I think it's been an improvement. It's going to keep getting better. And go show him some love. Go show them some love by joining the Discord. It's the first link in the description. You can also take the second link, and that's their Rumble. So go sub to them on Rumble or follow them, and try to help get their numbers up. Share it out. And go to the Discord if you want to partake in the future conversations, or sit in directly, or say for right now you could have behind the scenes after the show or whatever. Go show some love and join Earth Awakenings, and shout out to them for letting us host this. Greatly appreciated. So cool. I think that covers it. All right, so to the Discord, I'm gonna pop over and talk with them for a couple minutes about what's going on, and then I'll pop in and talk with you guys again. But thank you guys for kicking it. You're happy to listen, of course. I'm just giving you guys a heads up that I am going to stop my screen. But shout out to all the people in Discord. Shout out to Alan and Toby and Brian and Andrew for being on here, and even Jeremy and everyone else that jumped on the stage. And the ballers don't want to jump on here, but it is what it is. All right, and so let me go ahead and deafen, actually, so that they don't say anything. They can say what they want now. All right, thank you guys for kicking it. I appreciate it. It ended up being a long show. It always is. I'm going to have to start this show earlier. We may bump it up to 8 or 9 and hard cut off at 12, but I can't keep doing the 2 a.m. thing because I still have to get up really early and work out and stuff like that. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully that we covered it enough times in enough different ways that it really makes sense to you, and it's very, and you see that it's important, and maybe important to try to explain to people, like, you know, if gravity is a force, it's acting on the Earth, but that was just proven in Michelson-Morley. It can't be like that, blah, blah, blah. It's just important because people need to at least wrap their mind around, like, the mental gymnastics required to claim that the Earth is orbiting around the sun. Turned a 1-page equation into like a 7 or 8-page equation at least, right? And it's completely overcomplicated. It required all kinds of paradoxes and mental gymnastics that can't be true, that have already been disproven, that require made-up ideas of things like dark matter. And that should be telling to a truth seeker, right? Like, if to keep my idea or my assumption alive, I have to change all of physics and make up claims that can't be tested and make up contradictory claims and all this stuff and claim that everything in the world is contracting, you just can't tell. If you try to measure it, it'll look like it's the same size because the ruler is contracting, all the space around it's contracting. Everything's just a major illusion to make it look like the Earth is orbiting or not orbiting around the sun when it really is. That's pretty wild. So if someone's honest about that, it's a really good way to wake them up or lead them into understanding what's going on here. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Love your work, Austin. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for all the support. Misfits merch coming soon. Like, I already have it. I'll make sure I'll start throwing the subscriptions, and I'll let you guys know where it is very soon. We dropped our new membership. I had my tonics earlier, and it's incredible, bro. Like, you guys should definitely consider looking into the Life Reset program. You get like a full month supply of tonics, and like doing fasting and then replacing meals with the tonics is wild, bro. It's like super satiating and it fills you up, but it's like super clean. So I'm super excited about that. I'll keep you guys updated. We had our first little tonic hangout today. It was super cool. So yeah, definitely consider checking that out. There's 3 different level memberships. Work your way up. We don't think everyone's ready for level 3, so not everyone's going to be allowed in level 3. You kind of we'll have to vet you in a way. We want to make sure it's like a really dope membership, but we're also integrating a program for pregnancy and basically family building and stuff like that. So very exciting stuff with that. If you want to get your blends, link in the description. If you want to get your membership, I'll add the link to the description, or it's in the previous chat. We're still finalizing all of the website and stuff like that. So that is it. I'm going to get out of here. I'm tired. I got to get up early, but hopefully you guys enjoyed. Seek and speak truth unequivocally. The weak find contentment in the consensus of ignorance. So who cares what other people think? What's true is rarely popular, and what's popular is rarely true. Peace.
Days after days, pseudoscience just a big charade, making theories they just can't explain, on philosophically biased claims. Days after days, we break away just like a renegade, so pay attention, gonna get a grade. We're schooling globers till they all awake. Schooling globers with diplomas and a chip on the shoulder. Debate is over, mind is sober, solar system disclosure. Can't go back once you heard the facts. We make a pact, never take the backs. Schooling ballers and the followers that give them the dollars. They try to holler in the chat that you're a fraud, not a scholar. They hating y'all, that's why they attack. The earth is flat no matter how much they laugh. Days after days, pseudoscience just a big charade, making theories they just can't explain, on philosophically biased claims. dangerous like a renegade. So pay attention, gonna get a grade. We schooling globers till they all away.